So I've forgotten the name of the drinking club now.
Absolute
that
squad.
I was in. Yeah, I never really made it in there, did I?
Well, we can fix that if you behave. There might be.
Maybe we'll have to do some Absolute over the weekend then.
So we're gonna tell the story, or
and I can get my. We can do, yeah. Let's wait. Let's wait till we get to the to that bit. First of all,
absolutely.
Welcome to the studio.
Thank you so much.
Nice to see you. You've been threatening to come for a long time. I've been threatening to come to Verona.
I've been expecting you like every year. I'm like, when are you coming?
I do want to pay a visit there, just to see the place, and I'll be able to catch up with you. So we're gonna have to do that in about a year's time, probably. You're probably too busy anyway at the moment. Your schedule's pretty hectic.
It's crazy. It's pretty crazy right now, but just let me know. I got a place for you to stay in, and it's got all the toys. You can make props if you want.
So a lot of people will probably know you from Celebration, from hanging out at Celebration, and from
hanging out,
actually being part of the Celebration experience. We'll come to that in a little while.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been friends now for
at least
probably about 10 years. Yeah,
I think
10 years or more.
Was that Celebration Orlando? 2012.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, so it's 12 years, isn't it?
It's been 12 years.
Wow, and you've not changed any.
I wish.
No, you're supposed to say no to neither of you.
No, actually, I dye my beard white because it gives me a.
So you look more distinguished.
Yeah, exactly. More of a gentleman. But yeah other than that, no. No, it's been a while. It's been an interesting ride.
Well, we shall get to that. The meeting and whatnot. But so let's start at the beginning. Star Wars. Are you a Star Wars fan?
Absolutely. I guess if you consider fan as short for fanatic, I would say so. And I pretty much can say it's been part of my whole life. So I'm not old enough to be there at the opening of A New Hope.
There's not many of us were.
Yeah.
I mean, I dream of being there when it first came out at the cinema.
However, I do remember my actual first memory of a movie theater was Return of the Jedi. So I was born in 1979. So by 83, I guess I was very young, but yeah, I did get to see Return of the Jedi. And especially after that, my brother was a little older. He's a little older than I am. And so we've always done all this stuff together. So we used to play with Kenner toys and all that stuff. So I can pretty much say Star Wars has been on like part of my life pretty much since the beginning.
Constant. George was clever, wasn't he, with them toys?
That was, I mean, I think people are going to hate me now, but I love George Lucas more as because of his genius in that sense and because of his ability to be surrounded by the right people more than his actual probably movie skills. Actually, if I have to talk about movies, my favorite George Lucas movie, like as a director, would be American Graffiti. Big fan of that movie.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. I've watched
it
countless times.
It never really clicked with me, that one.
Really? I know. I've always been, I guess, fascinated with that time period.
Americana.
Yeah, exactly. The cars and the culture and the greasers and all that stuff. So,
yeah, I think you were showing me.
But that was a pretty clever movie. I think it was the first one where they had a whole soundtrack just made out of songs, just like pop songs or rock and roll in this case, anyways. But it was very innovative on that side too. So, and I think he was pretty smart to step back from directing for The Empire Strikes Back. And as I said, I think I'm digressing, but when he has full control, I don't think he's as effective as when he was young and relied on a lot of very talented people around him. So
You're talking about the prequels here, aren't you?
maybe, yeah,
Yeah.
probably. Was it that clear? Yeah.
So yeah, I can see that, and I can also see the American influence with the hat. And you show me your muscle cars as well.
I'm in total.
You get
Yeah.
back home.
Well, the thing is, I do have a lot of hobbies. So I do have a lot of things that I'm passionate about. So it's kind of hard to, have enough time to. I love everything from vintage classic motorcycles, classic cars, muscle cars, all that kind of memorabilia. I like guns. I like building stuff. I like collecting stuff, toys. It's just.
So do you have American cars then?
Yes, I have.
Do you have Italian cars?
Well, one is kind of a hybrid. So my American car is a 1971 Mach 1 Mustang. So it's one of the coolest cars. That's actually I'm a happy man because that's probably that is my dream car. So the fact that I own my dream car makes me happy. My first car is a car that was very popular here in England, which is the Ford Capri. Which was pretty much a European version of a muscle car. Part of the team that worked on the Mustang actually worked on the design of the Capri. So it was a smaller car for the European market, but that was my first car. And I love that car. I still own it. And I work on it, and I painted it, and I modified the engine, all that kind of stuff.
You don't have any Ferraris or Lanciers or Alfa Romeos?
That's Fabrizio.
I love the Alfa Romeos. I absolutely love them.
Yeah, well, I was actually born and raised in Peru.
All right.
Yeah. So I guess me and my brother did have a very strong American influence more than a European one. So even when I moved to Italy, I'm like, wait, there's no KFC here? That was weird. So yeah, I definitely, we grew up with a lot of my grandfather when, back in the day, he owned a 67 Mustang. So I guess he loved American cars. So I guess somewhere in the DNA, there's that.
So you're a Ford guy then?
I'm definitely a Ford guy. I'm not speaking. There's definitely a lot of interesting cars from other makers, but I'm pretty fascinated by Henry Ford, how much it meant for the automotive world. And yeah, definitely my favorite cars. If I had more money, time, space, I would definitely love Ford Hot Rod, and definitely love Ford Sierra Cosworth. Though it's kind of the same for Harley Davidson. I own different styles of bikes. I'm again mostly into classic ones, but I do have a small 2-stroke Harley dirt bike that they built in the 70s. I do have a chopper. I have a cafe racer. I have a couple of newer bikes that are still one is a Buell, so it's still a Harley Davidson engine, pretty much.
Yeah.
So they're
What's
more
that, like the Lightning or something?
It's the newer ones, but yeah, Lightning. It's a very interesting bike.
Yeah.
I love what they did with that platform and how they made this brutal, interesting bikes out of just Harley Davidson platform. So I'm fascinated. That's what I said. That's one of the reasons I'm not into the newer Harleys, especially in the 80s and 90s. They were just relying on the image. They were selling a lifestyle and not selling proper motorcycles. That's when I was never into the 90s bikes. They've been doing some nicer ones now, but one of the only modern Harleys that I own is called the XR1200, and it's pretty much a sporty Sportster. So it was finally a bike that you could lean, you can brake. It had decent horsepower. So when I saw the Buells, I said to myself, this is what Harley should be building. Like somebody else can. Why can't Harley make actual decent motorcycles? But the money was elsewhere, so I understand that. But I like to stick to the brand, I guess. I like, you kind of have to focus on something, kind of like Lineage helmets. So I think it's easier that way. Unlimited resources, yeah, I would definitely own like a classic Ferrari or or something else. More of a Porsche guy, but yeah.
Really?
I kind of like Porsches, yeah.
Wow. Well, maybe it's because you've been used to seeing all this Italian stuff. All the MV Agustas and the Ducatis. And
Yeah, you always like what you can get. So, yeah, I guess it all feels very very common. So you like the exotic stuff.
yeah. Okay, so coming back to Star Wars, the toys kind of reeled you into it. You can relive the movies with the toys.
Yeah.
So then, where'd you go from there?
After that, there was
from where you are now, with Star Wars being a constant daily part of your life. There must have been like a little bit of a lull.
Definitely.
Late 80s when you grow up and you found girls.
There was this. It wasn't about the girls. It was there wasn't enough Star Wars. I mean, the girls are still a pretty big part of my of my interests. But no, definitely during, of course, the late 80s, early 90s, there wasn't a lot of stuff. But my brother and I, we kept with Star Wars. We started buying the newer toys when they came out in the late 90s, mid 90s.
Oh, the muscle,
yeah,
muscle guys.
The big power of the Force, yeah. But one of the things that probably kept Star Wars alive for us were the video games. We were big into video games. I play with, another hobby of mine. I do have an old arcade machine. I still have all my original LucasArts games from back in the day. So definitely the video games were a big part of it. We used to play, me and my brother, we used to play together, X-Wing and TIE Fighter, all those games. So like one of us would pilot, the other one would do the shields and stuff. And then we started, reading the comics, reading the books, whatever we could find about Star Wars. We were passionate about other stuff, of course. We grew in the 80s, so we were into everything from G.I. Joe to Masters of the Universe, Transformers. My brother's buying all his Transformers back right now. Ninja Turtles, all that stuff. Now all of that is big now. But definitely Star Wars has always been there. We're very excited with the Zan trilogy, the books, that kind of stuff. And up until...
Not canon anymore?
There's a lot of stuff that shouldn't be canon and is canon, and vice versa. But here's my hardcore take on Star Wars. I love a lot of the new stuff, as we were talking earlier. To me, Rogue One is pretty much on the same level of the original trilogy. But Star Wars, to me, I think it's always going to be 4, 5, 6. And the reason is it's not just about the story, it's not just about the lightsabers, it's not about the Jedi and the lore of Star Wars. To me, the importance of Star Wars, I realized that in time, was the movie, the cinematic phenomenon that was Star Wars. So how that happened. The more you get into the story and how it happened and the people who made it happen, the more interesting it gets. And I think those conditions were so unique that they managed to pull out these incredible masterpieces with very limited resources. It was not the right time for so many things. And somehow everybody knocked it out of the park and they created this massive cultural phenomenon. Something that, again, I don't think can be replicated. There's going to be great movies. There's going to be bad movies. There's going to be, products that better represent the period of Star Wars, but as far as what Star Wars means to me is, those three movies and what happened after those three movies came out, how they revolutionized the story of filmmaking, all that kind of stuff. So I can accept whatever comes out of Lucasfilm. I will reserve the right to like some and not like some. And as I told, actually, I was talking about this with Vincent. To me, a lot of the stuff that comes out, it's just no different than fan films. So there's some amazing fan films out there, great stories. There's guys putting their heart into them. And I think the only difference is whether they have a stamp of approval from Lucasfilm. Because I was telling him, like, you take J.J. Abrams now, make him do a movie about Star Wars, but it's not Lucasfilm. What's the difference between The Force Awakens and his fan film? It's just because somebody say, oh, this is going to be official, this is not. So to me, it's great that we still get stories from that universe, but whatever happens before or after those three movies is, to me, it's just kind of not canon, I guess.
Yeah.
And again, I can accept a lot of stuff. Rogue One, I'm a big fan of Solo too. And honestly, as movies, I like the sequels better than the prequels. If I have to pick a movie to watch, the prequels are just not good movies. I'm sorry. Episode 3 is pretty good. But I will never...
I just watched episode 3 last week. And I appreciated it more this time around.
Really?
Yeah, I think I saw a bit more in it. Like the way Anakin's feeling that is being deceived by or not trusted by Mace Windu. I don't really think I picked up on that for, the kind of the first few times I've watched it. Not watched it a lot, got to be honest. I think I had real high expectations going in. This was going to be the darkest of the prequels, where ESB is obviously my favourite, and that was the darkest of the original trilogy. So I think I was like, yeah, this is going to be amazing. And I kind of came out of it wanting a bit more from it, but watched it again. Some interesting things going on in that movie. Padme's like really weak as a character in that movie.
She dies of sadness.
Yeah. Yeah, but she's just kind of like, the only reason she's in it is to produce a baby at the end. There's nothing about it. She's just like hanging on to Anakin. I don't know, it's a bit... Kind of the character lost it. She was very strong in certainly the second one.
The thing is, I think I never really connected that story. I mean, if I did not think those were Star Wars, I think it could be a very interesting story. But I realized more and more that how actually Lucas did not have the whole story in mind when he started. If you look at
he said he did.
He didn't.
He had all 9 movies all written in his head.
Yeah, right? At some point, he's changed his story so many times. So, I mean, there's not any mention of a chosen one in any of the originals. Actually, Vader in the first movie is just basically muscle for the Emperor. They even mention Vader being on Tarkin's leash. So even in The Empire Strikes Back, one of the drafts, he's not even Luke's father at all. That came out later. So I think the rise and fall of Anakin Skywalker doesn't really match the originals. And even Lucas did a lot of stuff that doesn't, like Leia remembering his mother, and then in the prequel she dies at childbirth. And there's a lot of those things, and when we talk about the originals, it seems that Jedi have been so long gone, nobody even knows who they are. And then basically with the prequels and then with the newer products, you have pretty much people with lightsabers running around in the galaxy when Luke was a kid.
Yeah.
So that doesn't really connect to me. I think they are very, very far from the originals, and So I don't think Lucas cared that much to change his story. So I can appreciate some of the prequels, and I definitely enjoy episode 3, but it just doesn't work for me as a prequel to Star Wars.
The prequels definitely feel more Star Wars to me than the sequels.
Really? I
Yeah.
would say the opposite.
No, I
There's,
think some of the characters,
Hmm.
like Maul, brilliant character.
Maul was...
I love the fleshing out of Boba Fett with Jango Fett. I didn't
Yeah.
ever. I know some people kind of like, oh, they ruined. I don't think they ruined him. I thought he was pretty cool.
I like Django. I think I was very excited about episode 2 when it came
So
out.
the first 2 movies, they've got that going for them, and the third
But
one.
that's not enough for 2 movies.
Well, those sequences really work for me.
Yeah, but the thing is, when I look at the prequels, and I know it's the vibe, it's all the CGI, it's even the duels. If I had to pick my favorite lightsaber duel, it's probably Kylo Ren and Rey. Way better than like Maul, Qui-Gon, and Obi-Wan. The thing is, again, I like to think the original movies established canon, and I'm okay with a slow duel. I don't need people dancing around. So the
You're
duels.
talking about episode 3 here, aren't you?
1 and 3, yeah, mostly 3, yes. I mean, spectacular, amazing choreography, great skills. Never feel danger. You never feel like a lightsaber is dangerous. And I know the duel from episode 4 is kind of horrible, and they are old, but that's more of a psychological duel. They don't need to show who's better with a lightsaber. It's just this is the master and they're talking. And every move they make, they're kind of be careful because this thing is lethal. So I like that feeling, and I think episode 5 and 6 are like the golden standard. So they have better choreography than episode 4, but you still have that sense, Luke having his hand cut off and Vader getting hit. And I do see that in the sequels. And when I watch especially the duel in episode 9, I see a lot of physical stress too. Like they are fighting, and Kylo Ren is just really hitting hard with that lightsaber. And they are... I see a lot of emotion in that duel, and it's not, again, just for show. They are actually fighting and going at each other with anger. I love that duel. I think it's a lot more interesting visually too.
I don't think I get invested in the sequels. I think that's one of the problems for me. Like Kylo, he's got his helmet on, he's got his helmet off. Well, it's like, what's going on? I'd rather he keep it on, really.
It's a Death Star.
He's a pretty ugly dude.
One thing, I always loved philosophy. One thing I liked about the original Star Wars was Hegel's theory. The thesis, the antithesis. I don't know if my pronunciation is correct, and the antithesis. And the synthesis, the third one. She's like, good guys blow the Death Star, it's the thesis, then the Empire Strikes Back, it's the anti. And then is the third, the third one is the second Death Star, so it's bigger and it doesn't have the flaws. So that's the synthesis pretty much. And I kind of feel that's Kylo Ren's. So he's got this helmet because he's insecure, then he's forced to kind of take it off, and then he realizes that's actually who he is. The thing is, I believe the sequels have amazing concepts, amazing ideas. It's just very, very poorly told as a story. And the thing that really drives me crazy is the lack of respect for the legacy of Star Wars. You cannot go into the third trilogy of pretty much the biggest movie saga on Earth without a plan. I find it inconceivable that they would just give freedom. I can understand creative freedom, but you can't just let any director come in and just change the story on the go. And that was the big problem, I think. I think episode 9 could have been amazing. There's a lot of stuff that I love about it. There's a lot of little nods to Star Wars, but they kind of wasted a whole movie in the middle going in a totally opposite direction. There's a bunch of things that I think are fascinating. Like one, and maybe it's just me that I see this kind of stuff. I think it's interesting that Kylo's journey starts with him wanting to, keep his grandfather's legacy and finish what he started. And what happens in the third movie is he actually prevents people he cares about from dying, saving Rey. So he did do what his grandfather, but it was not Vader, it was Anakin. He finished what Anakin started. So it kind of gives a closure to the whole saga. So he managed to do that at the end of the day. So I think that's very interesting. Again, just very kind of poorly written, very rushed. But there's a lot of those things that I think are very, very interesting. And honestly, they're fun to watch. As movies, I think the directing, even episode 8, I'm just gonna go like full. I hate episode 8, just completely hate it. I hate the jokes, the humor, the story, what he did with the characters, what he did to JJ, like, I'm gonna leave this character alive while the actress is dead and just kind of go nowhere and reset everything and subvert expectations for no reason, and then the hot potato is off to the next guy. So I think episode 9 suffered greatly because of that. But I gotta say, as far as directing and as far as cinematography, as far as the imagery, it's pretty mind-blowing, pretty great movie. So I definitely watch the sequels way more than that's what I've done, actually. I think I've watched The Force Awakens like 15 times since it came out. So I enjoy them as movies, absolutely. But then again, it's something different.
They're just showing them all again at the cinema.
Are they?
Yeah. So I'm glad you said that you enjoyed Rogue One, because I was thinking of going. It's Star Wars Sundays here.
Oh.
And this week,
really?
we've watched all of them so far, me and my boy. But it's Rogue One this week. That's on the big screen.
Dude, so I would kill to watch Rogue One again.
Well, we're going. That's already sorted out.
I have a picture with my friends. We always try. If we live in different cities, we always try to watch all those movies, all the Star Wars movies together. So when we went to watch Rogue One, it was just the ending. I remember all of us at the theater just pretty much shocked, like, just couldn't breathe. And I took a photo of us. It reminded me, I don't know if you've watched The Big Bang Theory.
Mm-hmm.
They have that episode when they go and watch, it's episode 7 on the show, but they're all like shocked at the end of the movie. It was just like that. So I generally believe Rogue One is a masterpiece. And what I really love about it is it's both original but feels like Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I think they managed to do with Rogue One was to make a movie for us that grew up with the originals. And it's a movie that, to me, it feels like, okay, you were a kid, so we keep getting this Star Wars is for kids, which I don't believe. Star Wars has always been for everybody. If it was a kids movie, it was so good that even a 70-year-old could enjoy it.
Well, that's the same now with kids movies that are successful, like something like The Incredibles.
Mm-hmm.
It works on both levels.
Exactly.
So the kids can go and enjoy it, and the parents can take the kids, and they can enjoy it. because they're getting,
they're movies that have different levels.
Yeah,
you can
exactly.
you can read more into them as you grow up, but they're still enjoyable by kids and vice versa.
And as those kids that have watched it grow up, then they start to appreciate.
Exactly, they realize more stuff.
But that's good writing, though, isn't it?
Exactly, and that's what Rogue One has. And I think that the cool thing is, okay, so when you were a kid, we told you this is Star Wars. So these are the bad guys, and we're going to show them as bad guys. They're going to be faceless and menacing and evil and this and that. And these are going to be the good guys who are like nice people. And so it's a fairy tale. That's pretty much what Star Wars is. So you have the good guys and the evil, good versus evil, all this kind of stuff. So I feel like they said at some point, well, now you guys are like 40, 50. So you know now it's not as simple as that. There's gray areas, and the good guys are not just spotless and nice.
Yeah, the good guys are now terrorists, and they're the
So,
empire of the actual state, and
that's
in
like
control.
one of the reasons I love Andor too. You have the Imperial officer, Mira.
Yeah.
She's an amazing character, and you're like, she's just doing the best she can do. She's not evil. She's not like, she's part of this Imperial machine, and she's just trying to do the best she can do, and that's why her character works, and that's why Rogue One and Andor work, because they have motivations. The characters are fleshed out. So we have this sense now of real world. We have this war movies. You have all that stuff, all this drama, like all the heroes dying, all this kind of stuff. But it's still Star Wars. So it's like, okay, now you're ready. Here is what real life is. Here's, even in Star Wars, here is what happens. So I don't think I could love more Rogue One than I do.
Yeah, it was nicely done. But again, then maybe a little bit of this is coming back to the freedom George had in the originals, and you get the sense that in Rogue One maybe he managed to get out there, Gareth, and do as much as he could the way he wanted it before the controls kind of stepped in and tried to curtail what he was doing.
Yeah, I'm still surprised they let them do what they did. Yeah, like killing off all the main character was pretty impressive. Yeah, I mean, I think
it makes sense, really.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, as far as the story goes, we don't see any of those characters. I think it's interesting. We get to see Mon Mothma, so it gives that character a lot more. Even Andor.
Yeah, especially in Andor.
Andor makes her just such an incredible character too. So yeah, definitely. I guess there's gotta be a line, like we were saying. They probably gave too much freedom to wander off for the sequel trilogy. I guess you can give freedom, but at least have a plan. So I understand probably, Rogue One had a very limited sandbox to play in. So, you couldn't go too much off those. But
yeah.
so that
which may actually be a benefit for it.
Yeah, I think so. I think that way works better instead of just, having like
free reign to do anything. Yeah.
I wish we got more. I also really enjoyed Solo. I think it was I
didn't really have any issues with Solo. It just felt like a heist movie. Didn't feel that Star Wars to me.
Really? I think
it was kind of its own action adventure, and
which is okay for a spin-off, because that's that's what it is. I think what they did is, there's a lot of different things that influence the original Star Wars.
Some weird stuff in it though, that when you watch it as a kid, it's just going to wash over you. They're again on the layers thing, but as an adult, you're like, why is Lando so attracted to a droid? What is going on there? I mean, that was kind of weird.
Yeah, I get that. But that's the thing, I'm not a fan of doing this kind of stuff in movies, like focusing on character sexuality. But I think, in this case, it didn't bother me at all because it was just part of the fleshing out of the character.
Yeah, it was kind of. I thought it was kind of weird.
But it's Lando.
Yeah,
I mean, one of the coolest.
He was good as Lando. He was good as Lando,
amazing.
and I didn't have any issue with Han Solo either.
The what?
The actor who's never worked again since.
I think he had brilliant.
What more can you want? That is Star Wars for you. Do a Star Wars movie and it kills your career.
If he looked more like Harrison Ford, he would have been perfect. But I remember watching a deep fake with Harrison Ford's face on him, and he had the acting down just perfect. Like the way he moved, you could tell like that felt like Han Solo. I think they did a lot of very interesting things. Again, Lando, I would watch a series about Lando's adventures like now.
It's coming, isn't it?
Yeah, but they said at some point it was going to be a movie, then a series, then the Glover brothers were taking over. So I don't know. That's the thing with Lucasfilm. They've announced so much stuff that's not happening, and they've canceled stuff. I just honestly can't believe it's run the way it's run. I'm sorry. Like, there's every single project has been a mess. Even Rogue One had a ton of reshoots and stuff, but they got lucky with that one. Solo changed directors. Rian Johnson's trilogy is nowhere to be found. Thank God. Taika Waititi's project too. Thank God. Patty Jenkins' project is in limbo right now. The Rogue Squadron movie, which seemed pretty interesting. So and I don't know. Everything has been like they had that project by the guys who run Game of Thrones. They were supposed to do a trilogy or something.
Yeah.
So it seems like they don't know what they're doing, where they want to go. So I did enjoy Solo, and I really blame Lucasfilm because of its lack of success. And I hate they don't take accountability, because the thing is, they made a movie, love or hate Episode 8, it split the fandom in two. So, and most of the people who hated it were the old school fans.
The Force Awakens split it for me.
I mean, it made a lot of money. A lot of people liked it.
I think at that point you would just wanted to go and see it. I saw it 3 times at the cinema in the space of 24 hours. And I've never seen it since.
Okay. Try again.
Yeah, you're convincing me to give it another shot, but the whole it's the Alien 3 thing. We're invested in Newton Hicks, and the opening scene of Alien 3. Oh, they're dead now. Yeah. Forget about them. They're gone. We're on a new story, and that's how
that's Covenant.
That's how it felt for me with Han and Leia.
I get it.
It's like, forget all that.
I get it. But if you think about it, we don't really get a lot of the prequel characters into the original trilogy. Not as they were. I mean, you have Vader, but there's no Anakin to be found, and you barely get Obi-Wan. So if you apply the same, going from the prequels to the original trilogy, it's very close.
Yeah, but it's not
just like a whole new set of characters.
Han and Leia, it was the love story from the original movie, and maybe it would have been better if Han was just dead when it started, or both of them dead, or something. But the fact that they're not together anymore is just that crushed it for me.
I get it, but I can see it as a consequence of
it's like mum and dad getting divorced.
It's not like but it's not like they don't love each other anymore. It's just they had this huge thing, like their son freaking becoming the new Darth Vader. So I kind of I can see that tearing apart a relationship.
It's that. So, but that was the one for me. I saw that and I was like, Well, and then the fat stormtroopers on top of it.
The what?
The fat stormtroopers. But I guess none of us are as thin as we were in the 70s, right?
That makes sense. Yeah, we can fit in those now.
And the costumes I didn't like. The Stormtrooper ones.
I really like the new designs.
They took me out of it. They just look too generic for my liking.
I really like the idea of the First Order being kind of a neo-Nazi group in a way. So these are not the Empire. These are kind of the fanboys. So I kind of like that concept as the new bad guys. And then, finding out they are pretty much a tool under Palpatine and everything. I do like the designs of, as a designer, I understand how different they are. I used to do design, but again, better than the Clone Troopers.
You think?
Yeah, absolutely.
I quite like the Series 2 clones. I don't like the first ones. They're a bit Flash Gordon for me.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think you can feel on the Clone Trooper helmets that they were designed on a computer. Yeah. They have those like perfect round heads and, perfect edges, and they just don't feel organic to me. And when I see an episode 7 Stormtrooper, I feel like this flow, like take an original and just like clean it. Let's make it streamlined and more futuristic. So I think that works.
See, I feel like they've taken the original Stormtrooper helmet design and made it as generic as everything you see in video games. So I don't know. I think when I see Star Wars, I want to see something new where it's like, wow, look at that. But then there's only so far you can go. I mean, Maul. You go back to the prequels. We're not had Star Wars for, what was it, about 15 years at the time, I think. Maybe a little bit more. And then we saw Maul, and you saw that trailer. And he kind of looks like the devil. Mm-hmm. You're just watching the trailer. You don't know anything about it.
I had to download the trailer on Napster, I think.
looks like the devil, and he's got his red lightsaber out, and he's like, oh yeah. And then another blade comes out, and everybody lost their shit on that. But now it's just like, you get to episode 3, and then you've got Grievous, and he's got like, well, we've got one blade, we've got 2 blades. No, we haven't. And then he's got like 6 lightsabers, and it's like the old Razor adverts. Why use one blade when you can have 2? Oh, you've got 2, we've got 3. It's like, where are you going with this?
Yeah,
it's just getting a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, I think the prequels would have been more interesting when.
Although I do really like Grievous as a character. I thought he was really interesting.
I like Dooku.
Oh, I like Dooku as well.
I think he
don't know why he was not Darth Dooku. I think
lot more.
I would have preferred Darth Dooku.
Tyrannus.
I'm guessing that was all. Yeah, but the Count thing, I'm guessing that title was all because of the Dracula thing and the
reference
horror and stuff. Yeah,
it's like I love Balan's call from Ahsoka. I think he's like very similar as a character, so very interesting. Someone who's been let down by the whole Jedi thing.
Probably the most interesting character.
Oh, absolutely.
In Ahsoka,
he was. Yeah, absolutely. He was my favorite.
But he did kind of have a bit of that Dooku vibe, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel he was very close.
Could he see what was happening, and was he really all bad? And
yeah, he could tell like what was going on with the Jedi, and then he decided to go his own way. Yeah, very interesting. I was so pissed when I heard that the actor died. He looked amazing too. He was like he had this very strong image. I really liked it.
Yeah, that was definitely a highlight of that show.
And there was another, I think, and I'm not an Ahsoka fan. People are gonna hate me after this interview. No,
I'm not an Ahsoka fan either.
Okay, she was, but it's not about the character itself. I just think they kind of made her way bigger than she should have been, because like now with all that's happening around her character, all we've seen about her character, you have pretty much someone who's as important as Obi-Wan Kenobi for Anakin's journey. So it seems like she's like a huge part of it as much as Obi-Wan. So you have this trio. So to me, it's kind of weird. You have all this, and there's not one mention in the whole saga of her. I mean, there's the voice in episode 9, but like she completely, I mean, they made the story, of course, to make her disappear because she leaves the Jedi Order and whatever. But I think it doesn't make sense. I know what you mean, because the
importance of the apprentice.
Yeah.
Where you've got, we're going to have to remind me here now because I lose track. So obviously Anakin's Ben's apprentice. Ben's Qui-Gon's apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
And Qui-Gon's master was
Dooku.
Yeah.
Well,
no, I think it was Dooku.
Yeah.
And then Dooku was Yoda's apprentice, wasn't he?
But I think that's another thing that they kind of, one of these George Lucas things, because Obi-Wan in the original trilogy mentions that it was Yoda who taught him. But then we know it was Dooku.
Yeah.
So apparently they said something, like Yoda, they had this thing with Yoda teaching all the kids to make Obi-Wan's quote make sense. So kind of like Yoda teaches all the younglings.
Backtracking a bit.
So they were kind of trying
But I see what you mean. That lineage of the master and apprentice kind of fizzles out a bit with Ahsoka, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, it's just weird that Anakin actually had an apprentice. I mean, we have all these movies talking about him not being a master.
Yeah, he's not even a master.
And why does he have an apprentice? And then she completely disappears, like not a mention of her in the whole saga. So to me, that's just kind of weird. But I gotta say, something I really liked about Ahsoka was that those flashback, those moments where she's reliving the Clone Wars, when she sees Anakin turning into Vader, the clones. Honestly, I thought that glimpse of the Clone Wars, that it was just dust and blasts and fire, it was better than the prequels. It told a better story in just a few minutes.
The last half of that final episode, final season of the Clone Wars.
Oh yeah,
yeah. That was probably the most Star Warsy.
Oh yeah, that was,
and
it was just basically music. That was so good.
Yeah, and that final scene with Vader and the snowtroopers and stuff.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you're gonna like that, aren't you?
Of course.
What about the Galactic Marines then?
I never really cared about them.
They don't do anything for you.
No.
Yeah, but that Commander Bakara
was cool, but he looked completely different than the other ones.
Yeah,
and
which was weird.
Do you want to talk about the Scout Troopers? Those are the ugliest troopers ever designed. If you put a human face behind that helmet, the eyes don't match. Those Scout Troopers, the clone Scouts, they have a name.
Kashyyyk Troopers.
Kashyyyk Troopers. They just look so bad. And they were just kind of ripping those designs, trying to make an older version. I'm just not a fan. No.
Yeah, I can see that.
I kind of like the.
Maybe I'm just more tolerant because stuff like that I can just overlook, whereas with the sequels I really rip into them. I don't know why. I
guess it's time.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, I think we've come to accept the prequels a lot. I
think when I saw the prequels, I didn't really have any issues with them. It was only later on when shows like Spaced were like poking fun at them. Then I was like, oh yeah, that is an issue.
Well, so I actually was one of the let's say promoters. I helped plan and organize the premiere of episode 1 and 2 in Italy for at the theater. So we had Steve Stansfield from Lucasfilm as a guest and all that stuff. So 1999, that was the first time we made costumes. No, actually, that was the second. Now that I think of it, we did our first costumes in '97. Me and my brother. So we made costumes.
Was that for the special editions?
Yes, it was for the release party for the VHS version. That was a comic book character that was, I don't know if you used to read the Tales of the Jedi comics. There was this dark Jedi called Exar Kun, Sith. He had the double lightsaber before it was cool. But so we did that, and then we planned the episode 1 premiere. And when that movie was over, deafening silence in the theater.
Really?
It was embarrassing. Dude, everybody was like, what the fuck did we just watch? Everybody was shocked. Nobody liked it. And there was a bunch of other stuff. I remember me and my brother, we used to draw comic strips about Star Wars. We actually got featured on the Star Wars magazine in Italy on a regular basis and stuff like that. And we made a bunch of comics about a few bad things of the prequels, like even the technology that didn't match Star Wars at all. Like Padme, she would just, if you look at her in episode 2, she just keeps pressing the same button to do everything on the spaceship. And then she's got these like crazy graphics and holograms and stuff. They're like, they had shitty ships on the originals. That doesn't really. So I think the prequels, I really never managed to appreciate. I mean, I've tried, but I think today there's 2 reasons why people consider them pretty much on par with the original trilogy. One is people are younger. So I think the people who...
Because they grew up with it?
Exactly. The people, I just keep reading like, oh, you know, the sequels are not as good as the great George Lucas 6 movies. And I'm like, no, 3 of those were not great. So I think part of it is all these newer generations grew up with it. So I totally understand that. The second one, I think, was actually the Clone Wars and Rebels. I think Anakin and Obi-Wan as characters were not as fleshed out at the time the movies came out. So the Clone Wars kind of filled that gap and made people really care for those characters a lot more than they did with just the movies.
Yeah.
So you've had
my son's favorite Star Wars is the Clone Wars cartoon.
I mean, it's got a bunch of really good stuff in them. So, but I think that's what made people love Anakin and Obi-Wan so much, almost I think more than the actual movies. So I think you have that going on for the prequels. You have all those stories.
Which kind of makes the final battle between those 2, even though there's more battles after that in TV shows.
Yeah.
It makes that battle for me a little bit unbelievable.
Are you talking about the Kenobi show?
No, the battle in episode 3.
Episode 4?
No, in episode 3,
oh, okay.
where he gets the better of him. It kind of makes that...
Doesn't make sense anymore.
I mean, he says they were like brothers, and they were.
Yeah.
But now they're fighting to the death.
Oh, yeah, no, that definitely adds a lot.
And Kenobi seems to actually enjoy chopping him up and leaving him to burn to death.
Well, Kenobi's kind of an asshole. Yeah. I mean, he's always been. He's lying to Luke. And, I mean, if you do consider the Kenobi show canon, that thing destroys Obi-Wan's character.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's either an asshole. Can we curse here? Yeah. Okay, cool. He's either an asshole or he's misogynistic asshole, because there's a bunch of things that just do not work now. Because if you consider the original trilogy, and again, that should be set in stone, and then you should play around that, right? there's a couple of things. I mean, besides Leia, they say she was pretending she didn't know Kenobi when she sends her message out. But I mean, you're still contacting the most wanted criminal in the galaxy. It's not like pretending you don't know him does any good, right? So she's like, General Kenobi, you followed me. My doesn't make any sense. She never met Kenobi. So okay, she met Kenobi, but then she doesn't grieve. That's the word. Grieve him when he dies. He's just like, she doesn't care. Luke is the one grieving. So that doesn't make sense either. And then even worse, pretty much, because now you have Obi-Wan do two things. First, now you feel he's, such good friends with Leia, right? They're partners, they've lived adventures together and stuff like that. And then you go to the original trilogy where Luke leaves and Obi-Wan literally says, the boy is our last hope. And I'm like, don't you have your friend Leia? So are you like just ruling her out? She doesn't count? And it's Yoda that has to say, no, there is another. Like Obi-Wan doesn't even remember Leia exists, or he doesn't care. One of those. So he either forgets and he's old, or he doesn't care about Leia. And even more, I hate the fact that again Obi-Wan leaves Anakin alive. That makes no sense at all. It could make sense what you were talking about when you were my brother, and so he cannot bring himself.
Yeah, but by the point is Vader in the suit and everything.
At that point, I mean, they have a 15-minute conversation about I am not Anakin. I killed Anakin. I killed everybody. I'm a monster, so I'm not your failure. So Obi-Wan should have just chopped his head off. Why? Or you could have used any plot device to do that, like TIE fighters come help Vader, whatever, he cannot kill him. But at that point, he on purpose, like he voluntarily leaves Vader alive. Every single kill from Vader from that point is on Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
First. And second, this is why he's an asshole. He asks Luke to kill Vader. And when Luke says, I cannot kill my own father, Obi-Wan goes like, then the Emperor has already won. Like, you couldn't do it. Why the hell are you asking his son to do what you were supposed to do? You are an asshole. So I think Kenobi like completely destroys Obi-Wan's character. He wasn't my favorite even back then, but nope. See, that's why we side with the Empire. It's a lot simpler.
So you organised the premiere of episode 1.
Yeah.
And you touched on the costuming thing. So the years have rolled by. You're still playing with the toys, obviously. And how do you get involved in Star Wars again? In the late 90s.
Yeah, I mean, it really never went away. It was, again, just trying to keep it alive. Most of it was video games. And then, of course, the special editions got released in 97. So that really brought Star Wars
ignites
back
the fire
big
again.
Time. Yeah, big time. So we went to the cinema. We started going to...
Did you enjoy the special edition?
At the time I did. Some of the things, I think smaller things in the dogfights, I think were good. Mm-hmm. Now, and I was glad I got to enjoy them at the theater, all of them,
I enjoyed it.
There's a couple of things that make sense too. I kind of understand having Palpatine as McDiarmid in The Empire Strikes Back and stuff like that. So I did enjoy them back then, but today I'm more a guy that would not mess with the originals. I think they're, it's the history. I think the way they were released is the way they influenced the world. So they had their limits, and it's fine. I mean, they were born in the 70s and 80s, so I would rather preserve the originals and I'm okay. I mean, some changes were right, but again, the more I'm into Star Wars, the more I appreciate even the stuff that was crude. I think it was fascinating. You know, the way they achieved some of the effects, the mirrors underneath the land speeder, that kind of stuff. Of course, it's not the best, but you know, you either start fixing every single thing, or you leave that as a sign of the time and like an archaeological thing. So I would rather keep the originals.
Okay, so you're at the premiere.
Yep. So
how does that happen?
we did a couple of costumes when the special editions released. There was this one Star Wars fan club that we joined. Of course, it was way different times. I mean, there was this newsletter that came in the mail and stuff like that. So everything was so much different.
Yeah.
And
I mean, the internet was still dial up and
I think
not really being used that often.
we joined the news groups. There was this Italian news group. We met this friend of ours. We've been friends for 25 years now. And so he saw our comic strips. And so he invited us to this website he built in 1991. And it was pretty much the first Italian website about Star Wars. And it's still up today. And so we started working with those guys. And that's how we got involved into the premiere. So we actually did a caricature of Steve Sansweet for that event. The guy that ran the fan club he also translated some of the books. And so we decided to make costumes for the premiere, you know, like they do in the States and stuff like that. So my brother and I, you know, we wanted to do Vader and Boba Fett, of course. They were our favorite characters, so the coolest looking and all that kind of stuff. And we had this, you remember those cutout stand-up?
Yep.
So we started with a more, I guess, professional scientific approach. So we started taking measurements of those, calculating that they were, of course, a little smaller than real life. So they would say like, so that's, you know, 0.90%. So we started doing that. We did not manage to do the Vader in time because I think we ordered a helmet. I think it was the Don't Post Classic Action helmet. That was the first movie size available helmet. And I think it didn't arrive in time.
For a mass-produced helmet, that was actually a pretty good helmet.
That was, for the time.
Yeah.
That was amazing. Yeah. I mean, we actually back then made molds of it to fix some of the imperfections. But yeah, that was great. But the thing is, even back then, I mean, we had to make this mail-in order, send out your credit card details. So like, am I gonna get this or not? So we focused on Boba Fett, that we pretty much made almost 100% from scratch. The helmet was actually the Don't Post 95, the smaller one, that we heated, reshaped, made wider, repainted, and all that stuff to try and make it more accurate. And what was a game changer for us and kind of made us step into this bigger world of props and costumes was the Chronicles book, which I'm sure you're familiar with. So I remember I think the first one we got was the Star Wars to Indiana Jones book about the Lucasfilm archives. So we got that one. And then we went to this kind of Comic-Con. It's the biggest in Italy to this day. Now it's this huge event with like 100,000 people. But back then it was more of a comic book, swap meet, stuff like that. It was very small, very nerdy. It was just like you would go with the people from your local comic book store. And we saw the Chronicles, and it was 300,000 lira, which is for like 150 quid, something like that. Crazy expensive. Yeah, we were like, well, we gotta buy it. So we bought it. And that's the first time we started looking at all these photos of Boba Fett's costume and go like, these are not the same helmet. This is not the same armor, and this armor has that helmet and all that kind of stuff. So we started for the first time realizing, there's different versions of the costume and stuff like that. So that kind of really got us into
I was going to say, because the cardboard standee thing, that was pre-production too, wasn't it? Yeah.
And she looks amazing, but it's a great looking suit, but it had nothing to do with the movie suit. So yeah, so we did that Boba Fett, and then we started working later on my brother's Vader, and that's the reason we had this, which I'm gonna give you.
Oh.
It's a little spoiler because we are part of the 501st, and we've recently celebrated 20 years in the Legion. So this kind of sums up a few things. So basically, we started off the design of the old LucasArts logo.
Oh, yeah.
And instead of that, just a plain guy, we did a Vader and a Boba Fett.
Ah, I see.
So we have our ID numbers on top, and basically it forms. This is pretty much a Harley Davidson engine.
Yeah.
Kind of stylized. Because when me and my brother started working.
We've got a problem here, though, haven't we? We've got a problem because I'm guessing this is your TK number.
Yes.
Yeah, 1338.
Yeah.
Is that you?
Yeah.
Okay. So where's 1339?
Well,
who got in between you?
We have a friend. The thing is, so back when we joined, you could still get the 3-digit numbers. If you wanted
3-digit numbers, wow.
We could
yeah.
We could have picked 3-digit, but so we had a friend
but four digits the one though, isn't it? 4-digit. Oh no, yeah. It's 3-digit in the movie, isn't it?
It's 3-digit in the movie. It's 421. So our friend had 1339. So me and my brother, when we used to do the comic strips and the illustrations and the posters, we used to do posters for all the Italian events, that kind of stuff. We used to call ourselves and sign the V-Twins. That's right, because we're not technically twins. We're 2 years apart, but we look alike. We're almost the same size. We both have the long hair.
I thought you were twins.
Yeah, see, everybody thinks we were twins. Exactly. So, and we have the same hobbies. We are both into motorcycles, the Star Wars stuff. We've always done everything together. So we would sign the V-Twins and do the little engine in the signature for the V, because we're both Harley guys, and Harley Davidson's engine is called the V-Twin because it has 2 cylinders, V-shaped. So made sense. Yeah. So everybody knew us as the V-Twins. So the motorcycle we both had, well, we both have a few, but the shovel head engine, it came in 1200 cc or 1340 cc. So 1340 is the nominal size. The actual size is 1338. Right, and especially for me, 1338 played on 1138. So I picked 1338. We had our friend with 1339. My brother was 1340, and another friend of mine who joined shortly after picked 1341. So we kind of had like the whole block. So we wanted to have a whole bunch of us with serial consecutive numbers. So
okay. So how do you go from you build a costume for the premiere?
Yep.
How do you go from that to the 501st? And not everybody has the ability or the drive to just build their own costume. So what goes on there?
Well, luckily, so both me and my brother, again, another thing we have in common, we both went to design school. So we have degrees, master degrees in industrial design. And there we learn how to do fiberglass. We learned about vacuum forming and all this stuff. So when the time came, we're like, we can build this. And we didn't even know back then, like they actually did vacuum forming, you know? But I think one very interesting moment was when we were both still in design school. So it was probably 2001, roughly. So we went to this big fair about industrial production machines and stuff, and they had this vacuum forming company showing their machines and what they could do, and what they were doing. Vader helmets. It was not like an actual helmet. It was more like this bigger, like half a helmet, but they had this big Vader face, and they were just handing out like samples. So we came home with this big piece of vacuum form Vader helmet. So we're like, that's kind of a glimpse into the future. So we started working. We upgraded my Boba Fett. We started sculpting molds out of urethane foam, mostly. And we started working on a Scout Trooper for him. Same thing. I think we had the Dawn Post helmet that again we like heated, reshaped it. Those were all wonky. It looked pretty decent, but we reshaped it. And there was a lot of ingenuity back then. The shoulder bells were actually like drainage sewage pipes. The angled ones.
Oh yeah.
If you cut the right shape, it just kind of comes out nice and round, very close to what the actual one was. Same with the elbows. We actually got another piece of pipe. We made a couple of cuts, pressed it in, bondo, and it was just a one-off. But we started just making them from scratch, and then there's that bug for accuracy and just kind of starting getting as many details as possible. But the reference were not the best back then.
That's funny. It takes me right back because I remember the I think it's Wizard of Flight templates for Boba Fett, the trash can templates, where you bought a plastic bin that was kind of round, and then you cut all the armor out of it so you could build it up. Yeah, they were the things that we were doing.
Yeah, we had to do all that kind of stuff and just try and find. And we started. We were not founders of the 501st in Italy. There were some friend of ours. Kind of friends. We became friends. And I think we joined in 2003. Yeah. Late 2002, 2003. And yeah, that's just how it started.
That's how it was all done back then, though. People were building their own costumes.
There were not a lot of people who would make stuff. There was some kids, of course there were the TKs, the old FX suits were available, so most people had those. There was some Vader pieces, there was the GT armor, some of that stuff. But back then it was still very, very rough. You could see Vaders that didn't have like a leather suit. It was more like plastic, and they sold these Vader gloves that were like super super long. And so that brings me back to what we did, which is something wrong. Don't recast. But we didn't know any better back then. So back in the day, I think it was 2000 and probably 3 or 4 when we joined the 501st in Italy. One of the guys had a helmet, I think it was a GF Fulano. So again, we didn't know any better, and we're like, oh damn, there's we have access to a movie size helmet. It just doesn't look like crap like the bigger ones. So we pretty much started making a kit to make troopers accurate. So it was very basic. So we started making smaller hand plates. The FX were just huge, a smaller, more round chest, and a smaller helmet. Oh, and the belts. We did the shoulder belts too. So we started, making those so we could have better looking troopers. And I think we were probably the first garrison that actually eliminated the FX helmets, because we always took a lot of pride into the accuracy of our costumes. That Italica garrison was very focused on having the best costumes out there, so we tried our best. Years later, when we started opening up to the more international side of things, we're like, oh fuck, we shouldn't have recast it. That was not supposed. So I remember back then I actually contacted Fulano online and said, hey, we did this. It was not a big run, but we didn't know. We made a few copies just for the trooper so we could look better, blah, blah, blah. He was like, it's totally fine, I understand, have fun. And so that was pretty cool. But yeah, we had that. At that time too, I always loved the Snow Trooper. So, big fan of The Empire Strikes Back. And they're the only guys who actually win battles. So I've always been a big fan of the Snow Trooper. True story. So they're badass. And man, was that a problem making them accurate. So I wanted to buy a suit. And there was only one guy, I think, in Germany. I think it was Movie FX making them at the time. But they did not look good. I mean, they didn't have the trim around the armor. There was a bunch of issues with them. So I'm like, it's a lot simpler than a Stormtrooper. It's a lot, less parts at least, a lot less work, The helmet, it's pretty basic. So I'm like, I can sculpt my own. So I started making molds for the Snow Trooper, and then I started making a small run. So those years I was very, very invested into the whole costume thing. So we started supplying troopers with the Snowy, and then I started making a bunch of different projects, Vader helmets and a bunch of stuff. I was pretty active back then, but again, very, very different times. There was almost no access to lineage stuff.
No, that's what everybody wanted.
Yeah.
Now people are kind of spoilt for choice.
Yeah, now it's so much easier. Even back then, you had the people who were just into I just want to have it. But to me, and this is where I kind of split it into the two different hobbies, but I've always also enjoy the more creative part, the making it happen, creating stuff from scratch. So even now, sometimes it's hard to me because I have stuff to display, and I have my own, and I have the lineage stuff. And of course, you want the better looking, but then I'm kind of looking at mine, I'm like, but I made that one, And sometimes I had pretty decent results. My Snowtrooper helmet was not bad at all.
I've got a Fett helmet down there, which is like the Natty kind of movie size helmet or mystery helmet, I think it was.
MSH,
and, yeah, all that stuff, and I've still got that, and it's not super accurate, but it's a moment in time, and these are the things, these are the stepping stones, that got us there, because we would never have had accuracy if it wasn't for the guys who craved that. We would still have FX troopers.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's what I was saying, because I like both sides. I don't really troop a lot. I don't have time. Like with the tattooing career, it's just crazy. So I can barely. If I'm lucky, I'll do a couple events a year. But I do feel at this point there's two different hobbies. I think there's trooping and I think there's replica making. So in a way, I can understand lacking accuracy or modifying your costume a little bit so it's more comfortable, so it maybe looks a little better because, up close, maybe somebody doesn't want to see all those flows in your helmet. So I understand going for a little bit more of an idealized look when chirping, but then going like full accuracy for the display piece and the one that's actually supposed to be, because we all would love to own the real ones, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, we can get pretty close. People don't know how good we have it right now on how close we can get to the real ones these days. But that's what we wanted. That we wanted to have that helmet on a shelf that is like just like the real thing.
I know it was a lot different when it 15, 20 years ago. It was a huge difference.
Yeah, like I couldn't have imagined we would be here today.
But we're standing on the shoulders of pioneers like you, who were there, who were doing it.
Us old people
who were making it happen. Now I think it's the people who loved Star Wars, because that's what it was all about.
Yeah, especially back then. Getting into this kind of hobby, which was so limited, it was a handful of us in the 501st in Italy. It was just a bunch of us. So even, I guess, when I went into it, it's not like I was planning on creating a big business or making money. It was just, so I want a better costume. If I vacuum form, I need to do at least like 10, 15, 20 pieces to make it worth, the money I'm investing into the molds and stuff. So if I have to make 20 to have my own cool snowtrooper, I'll do it. But yeah, it's definitely, we didn't do it like now that, you can have this huge audience and sell all over the world. It was just completely different.
Yeah, it's grown. Well, it's the same, just bigger, and it's the community, innit? It's bringing everything together, because, like you say, otherwise you just can't do it.
Yeah, that absolutely.
Otherwise we'd still be cutting up trash cans and pipes.
It was fun though. Actually, I remember making two female Mandalorian costumes back in the day, and the helmets we made out of plant pots. They were like plastic pots. Just cut it out, bend them. It was fun, but still, I love the fact that we still do have that sense of community, and I've seen it with you guys. I've seen it with a lot of other people. Just willing to help. Especially recently, I've met a friend from Germany, and we maybe all have resources, knowledge, advice, access to I don't know, molds or pieces or parts or that can benefit everybody in the long run. So. And I think that's one of the things that like recasters don't get. That that way you're only having people stop sharing stuff.
Yeah,
that's one of the downsides. But other than that, it's been amazing. I mean, what you guys have been doing, and well,
I think we're definitely about the accuracy. That was always the interest for me, because like you're saying, we were cutting up pipes and stuff.
Yeah.
And we were dreaming. It was a dream. Oh, if only we had that original thing so we could see what it was like. And, and just the idea, wow, could you really make a mold of that original thing. That would be amazing. That would be because and I never even thought about owning an original prop because I didn't even think they were for sale. I thought they were all George's.
I remember
his
back
own,
in the
his
day,
own little sandbox.
I think about this is gotta be like 15 years ago. Remember Star Wars helmets?
Mm-hmm.
The website that was like the Bible for a lot of us.
Yeah, still is. Still is.
It's still awesome. I remember I met Jess in Florida with trooping with the Florida Garrison back then. Probably 2005, I want to say. Oh, that was almost 20 years ago. Okay. Yeah. I remember that he put up those two original Sand Trooper helmets that were sold. Mm-hmm. If I remember correctly, those sold for like $20,000 one and $25,000 the other one. And we were like, that would have been so cool, and you could have made molds. But who's got that kind of money? And to think about it, that was so cheap compared to the prices today. That would have been one hell of an investment.
Yeah.
But I also remember, what year was that? I think, again, it was probably 2000. Probably a little later than that. They had that exhibition called The Magic of the Myth.
Mm-hmm.
So I traveled to Washington, to the Smithsonian Museum, to go see the costumes in person. So, and I remember there were photos back in the day in some of the online groups about people going with lasers. You remember those?
Yeah.
There was these photos, people having like 3 centimeters and 2 centimeters, and then projecting the lasers to, get an idea of the size of the costumes, because there was no other way to realize, what were the measurements on that stuff. And now you can almost just kind of grab an original and make a mold out of it. And that's also thanks to the people who actually, what again, people don't realize, people are risking their original props that are worth now dozens and dozens of thousands to let us have copies. Like, how cool is that? I mean, we really have to be grateful of what we have. And I remember when I was there at the Magic of the Myth, again, there was very little internet or anything like that. And so some of the stuff I knew from that book, the Indiana Jones, the Star Wars to Indiana Jones Archives book. So I remember at one point I'm in this area and they had the big, I think it was like a 6-foot Falcon model.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just admiring it, right? And the guy comes to me and says, you see that part that part comes from this model toy, whatever. And I'm like, what, really? That's so cool. And I'm like, I'm going to tell him myself. And I knew it had the little Champion spark plug sticker. So I'm like, come on, have you seen this? He's got that's so cool. So that was the, how to share information even back then. That was, again, it's incredible how different times are compared to back then, but
it's all for the love of the Star Wars, though. That's the thing that's come through it all is people still love Star Wars, and more with the internet. It kind of the replica prop world became more accessible to people, because 15, 20 years ago it was much more of a like a secret thing, wasn't it? Like somebody told you about it and you're like, what, really?
Yeah.
And then you got on there and you're like, holy shit.
Very
and there's somebody, if you've seen something in a movie, there's somebody there who knows about it or has got photographs of it or is making it. And that was mind-blowing for me. There was crazy stuff.
Yeah.
that you'd never even thought of, and people
as
are
you said,
talking
even
about it.
Thinking that you could own an original like the one used in the movie. What?
Yeah, it's good. It's good how things have moved forward.
I have a question.
But they were great days then.
Do we have bathroom breaks?
Yeah. Just through there.
Okay, cool.
Just through that door there.
All right.
To your right and follow your nose.
Because that's what a monster does.
So you don't need to talk about the Rose Parade if you don't want to, but
you are gonna make me talk about the Rose Parade.
Well, we're not, but I just think it's really cool.
Yeah,
It's something that's gone down in legend now. You see
absolutely.
it if you're interested in costuming, you see that happened, and you're like, fuck, I would love to have been there.
The coolest thing about it is, to this day, I have people come up to me and say, I joined the 501st because I saw you there. Like, I saw you guys there. So,
yeah.
Well, talking about Jess earlier, remind me that the very first international events we did back then, like 2004 and 5, I think, me and my brother and a couple of friends, we went to Disney World because they were having
Thank you very much.
Star Wars weekends at the time.
Yes.
Which is a shame they don't do anymore, because that was so cool. And it was all 501st guys who would trip there. So mostly Florida Garrison, and they had us as guests. So that was the very first time. The 501st was still very, very green in the beginning. All the clubs, even in Italy, it didn't really match what the 501st was in the States. So it was the 501st, but the rules were a bit different. Everything was kind of its own thing. Mm-hmm. So we go to Florida. Back then, there was a lot more partying, a lot less rules. It was really fun. It was really, really fun. So we meet all these super cool guys, amazing people, and we, for the first time, start to get that sense of community, this being actually a worldwide thing. So it's not just us and this other group. It's just like we are part of this huge thing. And, wherever you go, you have someone, you have friends, even if you've never met them. So that was Florida at first. So we tried to get some other Italian guys out there to experience that kind of thing. Fast forward comes this request from Lucasfilm for trooping videos. So our CEO at the time was not really interested. He kind of downplayed the thing. So I kind of pulled last minute. We went to this theme park near Verona, where I live. So we went there and did this rehearsing, marching videos and stuff. And we didn't know much about it. And yeah, basically they were casting for this huge thing, which was the Rose Parade. Basically, for people who don't know, it's one of the oldest traditions in the U.S. It's been on over 100 years, I think. And it's this huge parade in Pasadena, in California. And before the Rose Bowl, which is a American football game. So that thing really opened up the whole international flair of the 501st, because for the first time, we had people from Mexico, New Zealand, Japan, France, Sweden, Belgium, Italy, Spain, all over the world. 200 of us were invited by Lucasfilm, all expenses taken care of, because it was 2007 was the 30th anniversary of Star Wars. So George Lucas was going to be the Grand Marshal of the Rose Parade that year. And he said, like, yes, but I want stormtroopers. So where were they going to get stormtroopers? 501st. So it was amazing because at the time, Mary Franklin and Steve Sansweet were with Lucasfilm, and they really cared about the fans, and they loved us as 501st. They've had plenty of occasions to work with us. So they really, you could tell they wanted to make something cool for Lucasfilm, but they also wanted to make it cool for us. So they really wanted to make it a fun, amazing, memorable experience for us as the 501st. They even paid for an ad on the official catalog of the Rose Parade of a 501st clone trooper and an Ewok handing us a flower as a thank you note, which is pretty impressive. So yeah, all of a sudden, 200 of us from different cultures thrown together, the same hotel. We drank a lot, and we went through military training because the thing is, at the same time, they invited people who they knew were involved, like really involved with the 501st. So, for example, we got an email, right? So we got this email from Lucasfilm saying, me and my brother, you've been pre-selected as a finalist for this thing. And I'm like, it doesn't say a name. And both me and my brother used that email to talk to Sanskrit.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, fuck. So I go back like, hey, Steve, hope all is good. But which one of us is it? We just got this email. And Steve just went back and said, hey, you didn't think I would split the V-Twings, right? So you had people from all different backgrounds. We had people from Germany with military training. You had people from the Philippines with no military training. And we had to learn and keep the step and keep your alignment with a full stormtrooper armor, which almost no peripheral vision. So it was rough. It was really, really rough. And I'm not going to lie, the first day or two, I was like, there's no fucking way we can pull this. Like, no, you had people in that thing who marched their whole lives to, like, they go through years of training to be able to. And you had back then 2 million people watching live and 60 million watching on TV. And we're like, we have cameras all over us, and we had to make turns, and you have to be aligned. People had scout trooper helmets. Like, you can see a thing on the side. Snow troopers had the tiniest lenses. And it's, how much was it? 7 miles, six miles. So, I mean, there's people who do not complete the march even without armor because of the heat. It's cold in the morning. It's very hot in the afternoon. So yeah, we went through this training, which actually bonded us together so much. To this day, I have plenty of friends. Some of them are not even the 501st anymore, but it's the Brothers for Life thing. So I still go visit them. They come visit me even if they're not active anymore. Matter of fact, last year in Disney World, Dean Plantamura from the 501st, he was at the Rose Parade, and we called a couple of guys who are not active anymore, but they used to troop with us at the Star Wars weekends. We all met at Disney World, like 20 years later. So we did the training. For some reason, Sanskrit quite often sent me and my brother to talk to the press. I guess they were kind of stepping away from the nerdy stereotype. So there's interviews of me and my brother on the LA Times, on NBC. And I remember, you can see this in the documentary. There's a documentary about it, by the way. And I go like, oh yeah, we'll make you proud, Lucasfilm. Don't worry. But inside, I'm like, holy shit. Oh my God. I hope we don't embarrass everyone. It was so hard. I mean, you didn't know, like, should I drink before and be hydrated, or do I really want to need to pee in the middle of a 6-mile parade in full armor? So,
What did you do?
well, we partied. The cool thing is we personally as Italians, we bonded a lot with the guys from Arizona, the DNC guys, and the German guys were super cool. And it was New Year's Eve. So we were marching on January the 1st. We were nothing was gonna prevent us from celebrating, right? But the thing is, we were celebrating all the time zones. So like, now the Spanish, and then we'll drink, and then it was every time zone. So yeah, some people went to bed early because we had to be in costume on the bus at 5:01 in the morning. So I think maybe we slept an hour, maybe, and we dressed up. The cool thing is we had this one of the camera crews followed us, so you can see a bunch of us in the documentary, even if we were not supposed to be like featured as main characters. And yeah, it was freezing in the morning. You had some of the dancers. We were with this very great marching band, Gremlin. The Twi'leks had just like this catsuit on, almost naked, and it was freezing. And then just waiting for hours till it was our turn. And then when the sun was up, it was just freaking hot. And yeah, no, that's pretty much it. One of the most epic things we've ever done. And we marched, and it was hard to focus on everything. It was just everything so loud. And then you had people in the streets with signs for the 501st, like 501st, we love you, and stuff like that. That kind of kept you going. And we finished the parade. We were the most tired I've been in my life. There are people with bleeding feet. A guy actually like dropped. We had a couple of people not be able to complete the parade. We had this one guy from our company. It was 3 companies. As soon as they said helmets off, he actually just dropped to the ground. It was intense. But it was such an incredible experience. And for the first time, they had this sort of international meetings with command staff pretty much from every garrison that was there. And again, this was the first time we really felt this as this worldwide family. And that just completely changed the course of what the 501st was. And I'm not as active, but it's something that's become such a huge part of my life. And even as my rings, so I have my Vader ring for my love of Star Wars, but I do have my 501st ring. So it's kind of almost like 2 different things. So it's a way to celebrate Star Wars, of course, but it's also its own thing. I definitely enjoy some events more than others. Definitely the hospital ones are one of my favorite. Well, I mean, not that they're fun.
Yeah.
But definitely is one of the most intense and rewarding experiences. I've done.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
I've done one with my Vader. And we're lucky we can keep our helmets on because it's pretty wild. But the kids, and you have the voice and the breathing sound and make it look as real as possible for the kids. That's pretty special. So that's definitely one of the reasons I would still keep doing it as long as I can. Yeah, it's really hard for me now. They're gonna do one when I'm away now on ship or local hospital, but not be able to attend. But that's the thing now. I have way too many costumes and not enough chances of wearing them. So,
but yeah. It is really rewarding, 501st, and the whole costuming thing.
Yeah, it's as I said, as any group that grows so much, because we're talking thousands of members. Of course, rules become bigger because you gotta cover every possible situation. You try and make it, work as a machine. And at some points, of course, you need a ton of rules. And of course, not everybody's gonna agree with the way you do things. And it's funny because so many times people call the 501st elitists, and I'm like, we're not elitist enough as far as I'm concerned, because if it was for me, like half the costumes would not be in there. I'm really picky about the costumes. So yeah, I would have like the highest standards because I think it's fair. I mean, we have to strive to be the best we can. That's what it is. But yeah,
but you still need to party and you still need to enjoy it.
Exactly. Well, one of the coolest thing when we became friends with the German guys, for a few years, they kept coming to Italy for events. We kept going to Germany, and they had these crazy events for Carnival in Germany. That was insane. That was fun. It was different times. They were pretty like, you could smoke in public, you could drink in public, nobody cared. Now you're like, God forbid you're seen with
What's that? In costume?
In costume.
You could drink and smoke.
Yeah. I mean, I remember one of the times. So I had my snow trooper, right? And we were about to start the parade in the middle of the city. And I get handed these little liquor bottles. So it's something very traditional for Carnival. So you gotta take the cap off, you put it on your nose, grab it, drink it. And so I drank it. And then I'm like, where do I put the little glass bottle? There's no a trash can. And they're like, just drop it. And I'm like, nah, I'm in Germany. Like, these guys are very clean and I'm not gonna litter. And then I, well, okay. And then we started marching and we started handing out stuff for kids, right? Like the cards and toys and that kind of stuff to the kids in the public. And at some point, somebody hands me a beer. And I'm like, this is not for the kids. This is and I turn around and there's two Scout troopers right behind me. And they have their helmets up and they're like, drinking. And I'm like, can you drink in costume? It's just gonna, yeah, it's Carnival. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll. So I quietly open my beer and I grab my snow trooper coal and I kind of just hide the beer inside. After a few minutes, I see troopers smoking and drinking. I'm like, you know what? I don't even smoke, but give me a cigarette, give me that beer. I'm just like trooping, drinking and smoking just because it was cool. And then at night, like we wouldn't even change and go straight to these parties in the city, just freaking dancing and hanging out and girls. And it was fun time. Love the charity. Love the party too.
So that brings us around to where we met you at Celebration.
I guess we partied there. I kind of have that feeling.
Yeah, I think Simon more so than me.
Simon,
because I managed to get tired and need to get my beauty sleep. But you guys at it all night, I believe.
We kind of earned our fame there, yeah. That was the birth of the Absolute Squad.
Was that the birth of it?
Yeah, that was the one.
And that was, I remember Fabrizio with the
holster. The holster with the vodka bottle.
Stormtrooper belt and holster with the Absolute in the holster.
And then we carried the box with the mixers. We had the Monster Energy, we had the Mountain Dew, or drinking Mountain Dew and vodka and stuff. That was a good party. I mean, I was there for work, so I never drunk. But
So, well, yeah,
that's my superpower.
tell us about the work then. So you obviously always been creative with the cartoons, the Star Wars cartoons, and then with the building of the props. A lot of people will know you from tattooing at Celebration.
Mm-hmm.
Talk us through that. How does that work?
Well, I used to be a designer, as I was saying earlier, and then right before going for my 30th birthday, I said, I've always loved tattooing, but years ago it was kind of almost not considered a career.
Yeah,
but
I mean, years ago it was just sailors who had tattoos, wasn't it? And then the Spice Girls, they were getting tattoos, so.
Yeah, it changed. You had football players getting tattoos too, and kind of started becoming more popular. And I mean, even back there were conventions, there were good artists, but still wasn't really, as popular. Especially if you decided to quit your job and start tattooing. So that's what I did. I had a pretty good job. I was working for Electrolux as a designer. And I figured before I hit 30, I just wanted to try.
Electrolux, they're the vacuum
appliances, home appliances.
Yeah, nothing sucks like an Electrolux. That was I think that was the official.
Was it really?
I think so.
We didn't have that one in Italy for sure. Interesting.
I think that was the official thing, or it might have just been something we said at school about girls. I don't know.
Did you name a friend of yours Electrolux, or?
I couldn't possibly say.
Yeah, so
that went.
So
and you took the plunge into.
I started tattooing. I wanted to try it. I mean, I quit my job because I really wanted to focus on it, because I figured if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it right. So I gotta dedicate myself 110%, and try to get there as fast as possible. So I started doing that. It went pretty well. And again, I travel a lot. So even back then, I started traveling. I started doing conventions in Florida. And that's where
tattoo conventions.
Yes. Sorry. Tattoo conventions.
Okay.
So I started meeting tattoo artists all over the world. And one of them I actually met before I started tattooing. This guy I met at a convention in Milan. His name's Adam Hayes. And he had this Star Wars flash, like tattoo flash. It's the pre-made designs that you can pick. And he had Star Wars designs. So I was like, this guy tattoos Star Wars. That's funny. That's interesting. That's something I had never thought about. I mean, I had already my Mythosaur tattoo that I got back in 99, I think. But this guy had actual legit Star Wars designs. So I got tattooed by him at the London Tattoo Conventions a couple of years later. He invited me when I started tattooing to a show in New York called Visions of an Empire, about how Star Wars influenced the whole generation of artists. So I went to that art show in New York with him. And then I met other tattoo artists that were into Star Wars, and they're like, well, we are going to introduce you to this guy who's running this program. It's called Infusion. And basically, this guy, Mark Draven, he came up with this very genius idea, because he saw that there was both a market and artists that enjoy this kind of stuff. So, your average nerd wasn't really maybe too familiar with a tattoo shop, maybe shy about it. And your average tattoo artist probably didn't care about doing a stormtrooper on you. Like, most of the shops were like biker owned and stuff like that. Some were kind of shady places. So he's like, I know there's tattoo artists who love tattooing superheroes and science fiction and horror stuff. And I know there's people who want that kind of stuff. So why don't we bring the artists to these people? So he started doing small tattoo pavilions in pop culture conventions, so Horror Hound or comic conventions, stuff like that. And that's how pretty much we got in touch with Lucasfilm, and we started doing that at Star Wars Celebration. And the greatest part about it is since we partnered with Star Wars and we had to get chosen by Infusion, because it's a pretty big team and only a few get to do Star Wars because it's the most, like, the show everybody wants to do. So only a few of us can do it. You also have to get approved by Lucasfilm. So that's what.
So you call up your mate Steve.
No.
And you say, Steve, put a word in for
please,
me.
Please, no. No, lucky enough,
I marched to 6 miles for you, Steve. Get me in on this.
Exactly. give me that license. I wasn't needed, but surprisingly, for being in Italy, I have been doing a lot of Star Wars tattoos. So I have a pretty decent body work of Star Wars tattoos, and also most of my clients are 501st. Because when you are that dedicated to Star Wars, to spend thousands on a costume, it's easy, probable that you'll also get a tattoo. I mean, it means Star Wars is a pretty big and permanent part of your life. So, so I got chosen for Star Wars Celebration. So I got the approval to become a licensed Star Wars tattoo artist. So I'm the only one in Italy right now, which is pretty cool. And I've been doing every single Star Wars Celebration since 2012. So I'm extremely glad and thankful to Mark for letting me be part of that. That's been an incredible experience.
I think he's probably thankful that you do it as well. Because you do some amazing work.
No, I'm too popular. I love him and he loves me, but I was getting on his nerves at the last celebration. He actually kind of kicked me to the back because I had dozens of people come see me, because I mean I've been doing all these celebrations, and the biggest reasons I do celebration is because of the people. I love hanging out with my people who I hardly ever have time to see. So I'm there with my booth, and I was sharing a booth with him, and I kept having all these mostly 501st people, like every 5 minutes. There were like people coming to say hi, and they were like stepping into the booth, and like, sorry guys, can't step into the booth. But it was hard to both work and just kept. So he was getting annoyed, but all these people kind of blocking the booth. So yeah, he kind of hated me that time. But no, I'm really, he's an amazing guy.
You just need to put it out on Instagram beforehand. Just say, come and see me if you're getting a tattoo. If you're booked in. If not, I'll be in the bar partying.
Yeah, I'll see you at the bar. Yeah. Now, the cool thing, I think it was in Chicago, I had like a corner booth, and that was the best because I had people coming to the side to say hi. But yeah, no, that was fun. And again, he's an amazing guy, and he puts a ton of work to make this happen. And that's the cool thing about it. I mean, it's not just work, and he will be the first to tell you, do not overbook yourself. If you wanted to just tattoo, you could have stayed in your shop. So try also, you are here, so try also to enjoy the show, enjoy the convention. And the good thing is the people he chooses for the team, it's not just about the work. I mean, even if I did great tattoos, but I cannot play well with others, I'm not a good part of the team, you just don't fit. So that's the cool thing. When we do this, there's No egos, no drama, no competition. It's just like a bunch of friends and like, oh, what are you working on? Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's amazing. Oh, that's a cool Boba Fett or whatever. Everybody's just excited about everybody else. So that's the thing. We have, unlike your regular tattoo conventions, which I don't really enjoy doing that much anymore. I'd rather do all this kind of stuff. So we do these conventions. We get asked to tattoo all this Star Wars stuff, and you're just working with your best friends, and then you're just having dinner together and enjoying. So,
and you've just flown into the UK to come and see us, and then while you're here, you're going to get on a boat that's sailing out of Plymouth.
I'm gonna do a little guest book with a friend.
That's lucky that you can get the boat home. I guess it saves you a flight.
Actually, I'm gonna get off in Barcelona and then fly back to Italy.
Yeah, I know that I was in Barcelona and I saw that Virgin ship moored up there.
Oh, you did?
So yeah, I know the one that you're talking about.
It's pretty.
Scarlet
Lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 4 ships. So Virgin Voyages has this new thing.
This is who you're doing a guest spot with now for the next few weeks. Virgin Voyages.
Yeah. So
if anyone's going on a Virgin Voyage who's listening to this,
come see me.
Yeah, be quick. He's going to book up fast.
It books crazy fast. And the cool thing is, I've been lucky enough. You have a very wide clientele. You have a little bit of everything. You have people who just want their little anchor souvenir for the trip. But I've had plenty of people just literally go on a cruise because I was on board, which blows my mind. But I've been doing a lot of really nice portfolio pieces, and I've been doing tons of Star Wars tattoos. So, it's crazy because people are coming to the shop, not because it's any shop, but because it's got good artists, and then because they want something specific from those specific artists.
So if somebody's not on a cruise and they're not at Celebration, or you booked up at Celebration, they can visit you in Verona.
Absolutely, yes. That's still my...
Well, who wouldn't want to visit Verona anyway? Who wouldn't want to visit Verona anyway and get a tattoo?
Verona is gorgeous, honestly. It's really worth visiting. I'm biased, of course. But it's very rich. It's got so much stuff to see. At the same time, it's not as crazy or as chaotic as some of the bigger cities like Venice or Rome. So definitely, if you haven't, come visit. You can visit.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a...
My wife only eats Italian food.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Good. She's got taste.
Yeah. And she was saying when Piero's here, we need to take him for an Italian meal. So he can tell us what he really thinks.
She's just gonna use me as an excuse to get some Italian, right?
Yeah, okay. Exactly.
I'm down.
Exactly that.
No, it's definitely worth it. So I've been living in Verona for 32 years now. Right now, I got a place which is in Valpolicella, which is a pretty famous area for wine. It's a little bit outside of town, but that's where I could find a place with a nice warehouse so I can play with my toys and that kind of stuff. And that's where I have my shop. But it's a beautiful city. We have the arena, which is basically, it should be the second biggest Coliseum in Italy. So it's an amphitheater, but the very cool thing about it, if you ever come and visit, especially if you can come in the summer, they have opera. So it's still used today. So you can visit this 2,000-year-old building and listen to opera. People dress up. It's pretty nice. I've seen a little bit of everything.
It's in better condition than the Colosseum.
Oh, yeah, way better. It's better preserved. Yeah. And I've actually seen Kiss concert in there. So you had rock and roll night and fireworks going off in this 2,000-year-old building. It's pretty crazy. It's a unique experience. And it's the city, since we're here, it's the city of Romeo and Juliet. Shakespeare put that story in Verona. So We had the balcony of Juliet, which is a fake, of course, but don't tell the tourists. But yeah, there's a lot of history in Verona. It's beautiful. So yeah, and, I'm not home a lot lately because I've been doing this ship thing for the last almost 2 years now. It's been really, really interesting, but obviously it keeps me away from home. Mm-hmm. I've even met 501st members on the cruise. It's crazy.
Yeah.
One of them I actually did the Rose Parade with. I just saw him a few months back on the ship. It's crazy. Yeah, and Virgin is really, really nice. So the company I work for, it's called Squid Ink, is the name of the tattoo shop. Mm-hmm. So they have this, it's 4 ships from Virgin, and each one has a tattoo shop on board. It's 2 artists at a time. It's all very, very good artists. So.
And is that constantly, every time?
Yeah.
The ship's cruising, there's always 2 artists on board?
Yep. There's 2 artists and a manager.
But if somebody's going to book a cruise and they want you to tattoo them, they need to email you and say when you're going to next be on there.
Yes, if they want to know exactly. Yeah, that just happened today too. I have 2 people who I tattooed, I think back in March last year, that just asked if I was going to be on any of the ships on February because they wanted to go on a cruise and they wanted to get tattooed by me again. So yeah, that happens. Crazy thing too, I met a guy, super nice guy, at a cruise in February last year. So he got a tattoo. It was a Dungeons and Dragons tattoo from my colleague, right? Then he saw the patch tattoos that I do. Mm-hmm. And he was like, oh, I want a beholder as a patch, but I was booked up already. So he came by the shop every single day of the cruise to see if I had any opening.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I could not make that work. So a few months later, he sends me an email and says, hey, do you have any openings in your shop around December the 10th? And the guy's American. And like, he's asking me in my shop. And I said, well, actually, I'm leaving for the States around that date, so I kept it pretty open so I can choose a date. So probably yes. Let me figure when I'm leaving, and so we made it work. And basically, I think he was on a cruise to Barcelona, and he just took a flight to Verona. He didn't even visit the city. He came, hotel, next day got the tattoo. We flew out on the same flight back to the States the next day. Crazy, but yeah.
Wow. I need to get over to your place, check it out, and get a tattoo. I've got a horrendous tattoo that I need covering.
I can do that.
And I forget all about it until I go on vacation, and then you sunbathe and you're like, oh God.
Is it a tramp stamp?
I forgot. It is.
Is it?
It is, yeah. It's actually right underneath on there.
I have a colleague that's
and I couldn't think of anyone I'd rather have fettle around with that. So
I don't know if that's a good thing, but okay.
A couple of things that we've not mentioned, which we may edit into the video at some earlier on in the thing, because I didn't mention them when we should have done. The King of Troopers logo there.
Yes.
So correct me on this story if this isn't right, but this is how the story goes in my head.
I have the worst memory, so
well,
and
I wanted to do something like that, and I think I got on. I knew what I wanted. I can't draw it myself. So I was like, right, how am I going to do it? And I got on an internet site and I got them to design it all. And it came back and I was like, it's not quite right. And then they think they did it again. And I was like, oh, it's still not. And I think they did it the 3rd time. And I thought, okay, I think this is the best we're going to get. And then I think we put it out there. And then I'm sure that you contacted me and said, I like the idea. Who the hell drew it?
Probably. That sounds like me. Yeah.
And then you were like,
I do not remember.
you were like, you were like, I like the idea, but it's not accurate. And
I think
it
the
needs
thing
to be
was
more accurate.
I think the thing was, if I remember correctly, it was drawn by somebody who wasn't familiar with the helmet. So, I mean, everything was there and kind of in the right place, but you gotta know that place catches a shadow, and that curve is because the plastic curves that way, and that's the reason why there's a line there. But if you don't know, it's just a line, and maybe you don't stress it in the right place.
Yeah.
So probably it sounds like it could have been me say, hey, do you want me to?
So you very kindly redid the design, and it's just perfection.
Oh, thank you.
And then I said, oh, I was thinking of doing these other, and then you did all the other helmets.
Yeah. And do we need to add anything here?
No, because I think even then, this is how long things take. Even then, we did the ATA helmet.
It's funny because he gave me a sticker earlier, and I'm like, did I do that? That's how bad my memory is. And they're like, it looks like mine. I mean, that it's definitely. Oh yeah, I guess I did.
I think we talked about it, and you went, "Well, I've done the tie, and it's the same. It's the same thing." So thank you very much for that.
Of course,
it is amazing.
That's the thing. I've done something similar with another friend of mine. He's in a whole different area, but I know this guy. He's a really skilled motorcycle guy. He's the to-go guy for a specific model of Harleys. He's into performance Harleys. His work is really, really good. He's a very nice guy, and very professional, and just kind of like the best out there for that kind of stuff. And he had a logo, and it was this like the spade from the carts with A1 inside, right? And it was just like very, very plain. And it was just kind of like a clip art spade, and just, your standard font A1, didn't float. So I'm like, he's too good to have that logo. Like, the logo does not match the quality of the stuff he has. So I'm going to design a logo for him. Not even going to tell him. I'm going to do it and just gift it to him. To like, dude, don't take it as an offense. I just think your logo could use a little more to it. Something more, a little bit more elaborate. Still clean, still the same idea, just cooler. So do what you want with it. If you want to throw it away, throw it away. If you want to use it, use it. You don't owe me anything or whatever. But I think like this is the logo you should have on your stuff. And he ended up using it. He loves it. And so to me, I mean, I'm just glad if I can, if I have some skills that can help you guys. Not that you guys need my help at all, but, have a cooler.
We appreciate the help.
Cooler sticker and cooler logo. And I knew I could make it look
let's
the way it's supposed to look. I'll do it.
Let's talk about the other thing, because we sat here in front of it, and these are your shoulder bells. This was your sculpt when we originally started doing the Snow Trooper. I think that's something that you and Simon discussed over an Absolute many years ago. And the shoulder bells are still the same. They've never been changed.
That's crazy. Yeah. As I said, it's I think when you just meet the right people, it's not about the money. It's not about business. And so again, I always loved that costume. I love the Snow Trooper, and I started doing them just because I wanted to have my own, and I wanted to have it.
You did the shadow one as well, didn't you?
Yeah. It's officially, I mean, that means I called it called it Ash Trooper.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was like, everybody's done the Black Storm and the Black Scout. Why don't we have a Black Snow Trooper? I guess it's not camo enough, but I had black plastic, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna pull a black one. It looks pretty badass. It's actually right now there's a fan film called Dark Resurrection. A good friend of mine, he's insane. He's a dentist, and he did this whole thing by himself, like directing, special effects and stuff. And he made 3 episodes. He could not make the third one because it was pretty much a full movie, and he would have needed the budget of a full movie. But he did this kind of a trailer for it. And yeah, I'm wearing that. I'm wearing the Ash Trooper, and I'm getting hit, and I got to play the stuntman. He had some professional stuntmen, so they told me how to fall with armor and stuff like that without getting hurt. That was a pretty cool experience. And he had like green screen and wire work and stuff. It was very, very cool. All very talented people that work with him, and he's that kind of guy. He'll again meet the right people. I'll come. I'll bring my costumes. I'll lend you stuff for the production. I'll come and just. Because I'm happy that you're able to make that stuff happen. So, yeah, and I make
have fun, party, have a drink.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That was another great experience. Just the crew. It was all the right people. You couldn't but love every single person that was involved in that project, and we had so much fun over a few days filming that stuff. It was very fun. Yeah.
What's that one called?
Dark Resurrection,
and that's like a trailer. Or is there a part 1 and 2 of that?
The original was Dark Resurrection. It's like a short film. That was done with very limited resources, and that's probably 15 years old or something like that. Then he went back and did Dark Resurrection Volume 0. Which is a huge step forward. So, better costumes, better special effects. It gets into the story a lot more. And then he wanted to do the final chapter, but everything was even better this time around. But again, if he needed to do a full movie, just the money alone would have been insane. But it's crazy, and it just pisses me off because that comes to prove that we do have a bunch of talented people in Italy, but like we have no sci-fi cinema. And I mean, you have people who can do VFX, you have people who can direct that kind of stuff, you have people with that skill set, but Italy's not interested in that kind of movie making at all, which is sad, but yeah, it is what it is. And that's the thing also, he's a dentist, and he just learned how to use VFX software. He learned how to use all that stuff, and now he's working on movies. He's doing like assistant, second unit director, stuff like that. So he managed to get into movies. He got a couple of pretty famous Italian actors to get into Dark Resurrection too. He had the voice actor who does, I think it was Stallone and Mel Gibson, the guy who does the Italian voices. Mm-hmm. He does the narrating voice for him. So it's pretty cool.
So when you watched the original trilogy or Jedi, like you talked about earlier on, in the cinema, was that in Italian dub?
That was in Spanish.
Spanish.
That was back in Peru.
Right.
Yeah. So I grew up with all the Spanish names, and yeah, Arturito.
So then is it it's like watching a different movie when it's in English?
What?
Is it like watching a whole new movie? Or?
No. But with time, I've become more and more strict about just watching the original versions. I'm not a fan of anything. Let me be clear. There's a lot of extremely talented voice actors in Italy. It's actually one of the world's best acting schools for voice actors in Italy. But so many times, what drives me crazy is the adaptation of the dialogues. So many times when you do movies or series in Italy in Italian, they change like the pop culture references because maybe they think, people will not understand what they're talking about. And sometimes it's just cheap and it's just fucked up. So here's a couple of examples. I think this was during COVID that I was just like, nah, that's it. I'm not watching anything in Italian ever again. There were a couple of things. I was watching Top Gear. It's a fucking fantastic show. Thank you. Something we have to be thankful to the British for. And I was watching it in Italian because I was watching it while I was cooking and stuff and doing stuff. So I would just put it in Italian. And then this one episode, like one of the guys has his muffler comes off or something. And in Italian, the guy says, "Oh, so we fixed the muffler with a tie." But in Italian, he used the word cravatta, which is a dress tie.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm cooking and I'm like, he said he fixed his muffler with a tie. And then like, oh, he probably said like zip tie, or just tie, meaning a zip tie. But the guys who adapt probably have no idea what a zip tie is. And they just translate a tie and they just put fucking dress tie. So like, fuck. And yeah, that's what it was. And there's so many of those examples. And even in Star Wars, there's errors like that. Episode 1, when Queen Amidala says to Boss Nass, "Our fate is in your hands," they translated it to faith. So in Italian, she says, "Our faith is in your hands." So like, what faith? So, and this is like, that was the biggest production ever, and they were still cutting corners on budget. And my friend's gonna hate me because she's the Italian voice for Rey. And super nice girl. I love her. She's amazing. But we were talking, she was a guest at an event, and we were all at dinner together, and we were talking, and it's like, yeah, sorry, I only watch it in English. Actually, like, oops. They're great. Again, they're great, but there's nothing like the original voice and the original performance. Even though I gotta say, there's a couple of times where Fifth Element, Ruby Rod, Chris Tucker. I gotta say, the Italian voice is almost better. It's crazy. It's kind of a more intense performance. It's really good, really, really good. But I try to be more strict and stick to the originals. Yeah, so many times I see people complaining or praising the acting, and like, you're not getting the acting of De Niro if you're watching it in Italian. It's some other guy. The voice is almost the biggest part of the acting. So,
true.
So yeah, I try to, and even like for the sequels, like Adam Driver's got this nice, deep, incredible voice. It's kind of hard to find someone that has, that kind of voice. So, as good as a job maybe they can do, still, it's different. It's different. And I think he doesn't sound as menacing in Italian at all as he sounds, as intense as he sounds in English. So, yeah. So whenever I can, I try to watch everything in English. It's just the way it's supposed to be. So,
right. Well, is there anything else we want to talk about?
I don't know. What am I bringing home now?
We can have a good look round. We can have a look round and find some stuff.
Yeah, no, again, so because we were talking about when we met and had that deal with Simon about the tattoo first because I tattooed him
Oh, yes.
at
Yes.
Celebration. That was the first thing. And then, as I said, I worked on the Snowtrooper because I wanted a better Snowtrooper to be available. And then at that point, my tattoo career was working. So I had pretty much no time to work on props. I mean, I still have dozens of projects to work on. And I had all my molds pretty much just collecting dust. It was a pity.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really glad we put those to good use.
Yeah. They're still over there. The same.
I'm impressed that
Same
you're
pieces.
still using. That means they were decent. So I'm happy about that. Even for the tie part, it's pretty cool.
Yes,
And-
the chest box.
Yeah. And I think I was the first one to do the upside down construction and the first one to do the ribs. That's another big
Yes, which
that are back in fashion now.
yeah. They were not accepted, were they?
That was crazy.
For the longest time.
It took us so much to get those to be. That was the crazy thing. Like, so I tried to fight that fight back in 2007, I think. That's when I went to the JRS and I said, you got your ties wrong because you're calling Return of the Jedi A New Hope and you're calling A New Hope Return of the Jedi because what you see in Return of the Jedi are cut scenes from A New Hope and you can tell.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got that wrong. And also the chessbook has ribs, the armor has trim and that kind of stuff. And I was just trying to get everybody to have better costumes. And no, that was like talking to a wall. You know, that's what's funny. So illogically, it came down to Jay and me a little to prove pretty much all screen used chess box had ribs to make them finally accept them. And I was like, we don't want to make them mandatory, but you cannot turn down costumes because they have the ribs when clearly we've seen during filming and after filming boxes that have the ribs. So you have to accept them as an option. And they're like, no, because... And I mean, there's that backstage photo of the tie in the cockpit from A New Hope when you can clearly see the lines. And they would not... And they were bringing the prototype, which has a box upside down, saying, oh, that doesn't have ribs. Yeah, but that's front to back. That's reverse. So we don't know. Maybe it has the ribs, but they're pointing to the back.
Mm-hmm.
So Jay did this. He's the Batman of props because he's a detective. You know, he does that kind of stuff. And he tracked every single chess box and found photos where you can see the ribs, right? Except one. The one he was missing was the one that Propster has. So I think he called Propster and he said, "Does your chess book has ribs?"
Oh, it's definitely got the ribs because they had it on display.
But that's the thing. He called, and they say no.
All right.
So he comes to me and says, "I mean, they said," and I'm like, "Give me a second." Celebration Anaheim, I think 2015. They had that on display.
Yeah.
And I remember I took a photo. It's a very soft pull. That box is pretty soft. So the detail is really barely visible, to be honest. Mm-hmm. So I understand somebody just looking at it and maybe not seeing it. But I remember I took a photo from the bottom so you could see the light actually break on the ribs. So I'm like, Jay, give me a minute. Found the photo, sent him to him, and that's like, okay, all boxes have the fucking ribs. Can we have them approved at least as an option? That was crazy, but Made it happen. Took a while. Took only, I think those were approved thanks to Jay in 2023. And yeah, I first went to them in 2007, trying to get a detail proof. That's insane.
That's mad. But we got there.
Finally, yeah. Oh, another fun fact about the snowtrooper. So again, back then when I sculpted those, the reference were non-existent. There were a couple of photos, like super grainy photos in a couple of books. So again, I find out about the commander, and then I found this couple of photos of the snowtrooper. And so when I'm working on my masters, I see the photo of the behind the scenes photos of the snow commander, and it's got this little thing on the top of the head, right? We called it the nipple. And then we had this, it was like double S props, famous for nipples. That was the slogan. So then there's this photo of a snowtrooper kind of falling, and you can also see something that we later found out it was the what's it called?
Rivet or Chicago screw?
Yeah. So, but you couldn't tell. That photo was so bad you couldn't tell what it was. There was no photos of the actual helmet or anything like that. So I say, well, the snowtrooper has that little nipple on top, and you can see it's on the troopers too. So I put this little thing on top of my original helmet, right? So I'm all excited about sharing all this stuff and, all the little details my new suit had and stuff. And I post the photos, and of course I got somebody from the States going like, oh, you got to take that off. And like, what? Yeah, no, you can't have that. The nipple on top was like, they already take us for KKK members. You can't have the Nazi helmet. And like, well, first off, the ones with the spike are Prussian. That has nothing to do with the Nazis. But okay. And second, it's on the fucking helmet, so I don't give a fuck. It's accurate. So you want to prove it or not? I don't give a fuck. Yeah, I've always, and so many times I tell people, look at the freaking movie. Don't look at the CRL. And I don't care if what I do is against the CRL. You don't want to prove it, you don't approve it. But I know that I'm doing what's...
There can't be much from the original trilogy that's not represented in the CRL these days.
Yeah, I think we have pretty much everything.
I think those ribs were getting on for like one of the last things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of come round now, isn't it? But a lot of that, I mean, the 501st is an amazing organisation, but at the end of the day, there are people in charge, and if they've got the preconception over the years and years and years of being interested in Star Wars that something's not there, it's difficult to change their mind.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's everybody's human.
Oh, yeah. And again, in any big group of people, there's going to be that kind of conflict. There's going to be those kind of people. There's going to be the kind of people who just, focus way too much on some of that stuff. Sometimes there are people fighting on what detachment gets a specific kind of costume.
But to me, it's exciting that a new fact can still come to light. And rather than be like, oh, no, I know everything there is to know about it, and that's not true. Why not be like, I want to prove my preconception wrong by checking it out. I don't believe it, but I'm going to take a look at it from that point of view and see if it could be possible.
Yeah, that's the same for me. I mean, I love to be proved wrong.
Yeah.
Because then the next time, I'm going to have a more solid, I'm going to know more.
Yeah, and you've got a better understanding of that costume, and that may transfer some information to another one for something that we don't know anything about.
Yep.
So yeah, why?
And also, there's a lot of interesting facts, and sometimes they're like, oh, but that's from the officer, and have the same CRL from the tie but you have the same parts. And the other day, a friend of mine, she does a lot of the soft parts. She posted a costume. I think it was her. Was that Sabine? I think it was Sabine, but again, I have the worst memory. And I look at the photo she posted, and I'm like, that build buckle looks familiar. And it's the buckle from the goggles from the Mud Trooper. Same one. Excellent one. But, sometimes if you work into like separate areas, there's no exchange of information. There's all those kind of stuff that you're missing out on. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's still freaking exciting. We are finding out stuff from these costumes like every day. It's crazy to me, but it's amazing, which sucks in a way because now I gotta redo all my costumes. And again, I love the ingenuity from back in the day, but it's just so cool that now we have access to.
Have you seen the sculpt thing in person?
No, it's just the first time.
What do you think?
It's crazy. That's such an incredible piece.
It's mad, isn't it? So to think that that's kind of what they envision. You see the gap at the top.
Yeah, very.
Between the faceplate and the helmet. That's kind of what they envisioned it was going to be like, and this is kind of the reality. So there's compromises that they've made, but it's crazy to look at it, isn't it?
Yeah,
and that it even exists.
Oh yeah, I remember when you told me about it. I was like, because I've seen that photo.
But that's the thing, innit? Without that line, it's like, is it real? But because of that, it's 100%. We know exactly what it is.
And you know what's funny? When I sculpted my snowtrooper, so I remember that.
Yeah,
I remember that photo. So I'm like, well, the commander, you can see the nostrils.
Yes.
And the concept has the nostrils.
Yeah, and you put them on.
So I was like, as a designer, the way you would think and you would work, it makes sense. It makes sense that it has them underneath that cowl. So I'm just going to put them. Worst case scenario, you can tell they are there, but I think it should have them. So I just put them in there. And it's so cool that years later, you guys could prove that.
Yeah, and it's under there on the snowtrooper.
That was such a cool thing. It was like I bet on that years ago, like 25 years ago, and 25 years later I'm proven. No, 20 years later I'm proven right. That was pretty cool, I gotta say.
Yeah, it's a cool costume.
So underrated. Yeah, but it at some point you're just like start appreciating the little things on everyone, and they're like, oh, okay,
they're cool.
I like that, but I really want a Scout Trooper too.
in the community, it's cool that there are people out there that are so dedicated to like one costume, and you look at like you mentioned Jay, and with the tie, and then with the snowtrooper, there's Chris, who's out there.
Tuba Chris, yeah, great guy.
And they just absolutely fixed on every detail.
Oh yeah,
there are other people out there.
I couldn't believe when they identified the little Gribbly, the round one.
Yeah,
I still need to get one. I called the company, the Italian company that made them years ago. And that must have been their weirdest phone call. They're like, hi, do you happen to have this 70s thermostat? Maybe a box somewhere?
Let's just take a toilet break a minute.
Yep.
Because my 2 cups of teas are gaining on me now.
Yeah, I'll probably take another one too.
So, I'll wait for you to sit down. This thing,
Yes.
the thermostat.
Uh-huh.
So Chris found these. He found
That elusive.
about, I don't know, maybe half a dozen in South Africa.
Oh, yeah?
And he got in touch with me and he said, I found some in South Africa, but the guy won't ship them outside of South Africa. Do you know anyone in South Africa who we can talk to? Anyway, as it happened, we'd just had a client buy a suit there. So I said, I'm after these things. Can you buy them and get them shipped to you and then ship them to us? Anyway, it took months for them to arrive, but they finally did arrive. And that was the first ones that were found. Since then, I think a few more have been found.
Yeah, I've seen some with like a plastic casing. Finally. That's so cool. You know, I designed the first Blizzard Force coin. You know, the Blizzard Force is the Snowtrooper detachment for the 501st. And so the back is shaped like one of this because that's so
clover
iconic
leaf kind of thing. That's like a clover leaf kind of design, isn't it?
Who am I? If I put it here,
The alien.
you passed. That's awesome.
I didn't know you were looking for one of them. That's yours then. You have that one.
Can I give it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got one. You should definitely have one.
That's awesome. That is so cool.
The amount of work you've put into Snowtroopers over the years, you should definitely have one of those.
Yeah, I've been meaning to, start looking for one, and it's just everything's so crazy. But yeah, I'm definitely always wanted to have one of this. That's awesome. Thank you.
That's cool.
So cool.
Well, I think we should wrap things up then, and we can start to party and drink now.
Sounds good. That's what I came for.
But,
It's been a pleasure. It's good to finally be able to, I've been promising or threatening, as you said, to come visit for a while. So I almost thought it was not going to be possible because I'm always, super crazy. And then I was booking my flights. I'm like, what if I fly into Manchester?
So what are you doing? Getting the train down to...
What?
You're getting the train down?
Yeah, I guess.
Was it Plymouth? Portsmouth,
yeah. Yeah, it's great because my friend has a shop there. So I will work in there a couple of days and then embark on the ship. So, and then Barcelona, then go back, then I'll go to Peru, and then back out to the Caribbean. So
it's a tough life.
It can definitely make things harder. It's as cool as it is, it's every time you go back, you have to take care of 1,000 things. It's kind of hard to keep relationships and that kind of stuff, traveling so much. But right now I'm loving it. I'm really enjoying it. So as long as all this keeps me able to do what I love, I'll do it.
Yeah.
It's worth it. So
that's it. Very lucky. Very talented. Very understandable.
Thank you.
So
I like to think that I work hard enough to earn the things that, but definitely there's some luck in it too.
Well, thanks for coming and seeing us.
Thank you.
And talking to everybody who's listening.
All 3 people?
I'm sure they're going to be looking you up.
Hopefully.
I would recommend that they do so.
Maybe next time we'll do a proper tour, or actually, just come down. We can do an episode about you getting tattooed.
Yeah.
It could be fun.
Yeah, that will be part 2. We'll follow up on that.
If you start crying, we'll cut it out.
I will definitely start crying.
Awesome. Thank you.
Unless I have a lot of absolute and I can just pass out in the chair.
That'll mean that you bleed a lot. So no. Yeah.
Oh, do you? What with the alcohol?
Yeah. Yeah. It will. It makes the blood thinner, so it's harder to tattoo, and it's harder to heal too.
Really harder to actually do it. It's harder to actually tattoo.
Yeah. Yeah, because pretty much the blood will keep pushing the ink out.
Right.
And some people do have a natural thinner blood. So some people are already a little harder. I was tattooing a guy on ship, and he got Harry Potter, the Hogwarts crest.
Oh yeah.
Crest, I knew that word. Got a big one on his chest, and all done as a patch. So it was a lot of work, very, very intricate. And he told me every time he got tattooed, he got told he had kind of a thin blood, and also he had a couple drinks, and it turned out to be a nightmare. It took me way more than it was supposed to take. So I mean, we pull it in the end.
So as you actually put in the ink in, you can see the blood pushing it out, kind of thing. Or you can see it's like not taking the way you expect it to.
Yeah, it turns red right away, and
that's crazy.
Yeah,
I never would have thought about that.
No tattoos drunk. It's not because of the bad decisions. I hate the weirdest tattoo. So. But because of the actual tattoo procedure and the healing factor, it's better to avoid alcohol. Yeah, absolutely.
So how did you design the patch ones? Because they are pretty amazing looking.
Well, whenever I can, I will look at actual patches. So, for example, I need to do one now with a Metallica logo. So I will actually go back and you can find Metallica patches. So I will look at those, because what I like to do, and of course it's about me again being all about accuracy and putting more work that I need to. So there's one way to do the patch effect while tattooing, and it's very basic. And basically you have, your shadow side, your mid-tone, and your highlight. So you just basically follow the areas, and you put the light towards the light source pretty much. But, do
you design it all beforehand so you know what it's going to look like?
Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine that would be the case.
Right now, I'm at the point that I've done so many that most of the times I can improvise and just, where the shadows and the patterns should be. But again, when possible, I like to watch and analyze actual patches, because so many times when they bend, they have maybe the light source moving from one side to the other, or actually some areas are not reflective because they're not catching light. So when I can, I try to get all those little details from the real patch and try to incorporate it in the tattoo. So whenever possible, I will look at a real patch. If I don't have one available, it's something from scratch, I'll just study it and see how it would work in real life.
So is there quite a bit of time involved in that? In before you even start putting ink in the blood?
Well, let's say pretty much everything I do has a lot of work done beforehand, because even when I do more like what we call new school, it's just more like the comic book style stuff, I usually prefer, what I usually do is a full color study. So I will do the whole thing in color, including lights, shadows, reflections, contrast lights, the thickness of the lines that I want, all that kind of stuff. So that way it takes out all the guesswork from my job. So when I tattoo, I just focus on replicating. Everything's done, everything's thought out. So I just go that's where the green go, that's where the bread goes, and that's it. Just I have everything planned. But
So how will that work on the ship then? Have you already got people booked in and you've got ideas and...
yeah, so exactly. That's the only bad part about it. So the great part is, as I was saying, luckily I have so many people that actually come to get stuff from me. So you could maybe, do the whole thing just doing anchors and octopi, or stuff like that. But I am lucky that I get a lot of requests for custom stuff. So I get asked for Vader, Stormtrooper patch, whatever. Unfortunately, that means I have to draw it beforehand. And when you have a 12-hour day in the shop ahead of you and you maybe have like 6 tattoos booked and you have to draw 6 tattoos and you finish working at 10 p.m. and you get to do 6 projects design before 10 a.m. in the morning, that means you don't sleep. And if you also want to try and, have a drink and have a little fun, it's rough.
You draw it old school as well, pen and paper, or do you do it on an iPad and
everything
digital?
Yeah. I've always been, I always tell people I am kind of I have this dualism about me, because on one side I'm all about the old school stuff. I love the classic cars, the classic bikes, all that. I enjoy having to fix my bike. I can take an old school tattoo machine, take it all apart, rebuild it, tune it, do all like the old school tattoo artist. At the same time, I have that more nerdy side of me. So as much as I love 71 Mustang, I freaking love Teslas. I love like the full modern technology, the most advanced stuff. So that's what's been with my tattooing too. I love the old school machines, but then you have these wireless rotary super light machines, and I'm trying all the new machines as soon as they come out. And I was literally one of the first to work on digital, because even way before I used to tattoo, I used to do comic strips, and I used to do posters, illustrations, caricatures, and all that stuff. And I used to do a lot of digital coloring, even before we had tablet screens and stuff like that. I've always done digital painting. So when I got into tattooing, it was a natural step for me to do things digitally. So I first started doing just like pencil drawings, then scan them, and then coloring them in the computer and stuff, like Photoshop and stuff like that. But as soon as especially the tablets became available, I jumped into that. And of course, especially tattooing, it's a very conventional, very traditional industry. So people were like, now you got to draw on paper because, the feeling of paper and this and that. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not doing drawings. I do tattoos. So it doesn't matter the way I do my original design. So if I have a tool that lets me work better and get better results, I'm going to use it. So, and now everybody does it. Like every single tattoo artist draws pretty much on, except maybe like a 5% that do like Japanese and old school stuff, but it's very rare these days. Everybody works with an iPad. I mean, it makes the process just so much easier. At the same time, I thought it was going to make it faster for me. It's the opposite, because now I say, well, I can also do this quick coloring, and then I spend extra 2 hours just coloring. But it is what it is. I'm happy that it helps my process. So I love working on digital. And the cool thing is, once you're done with the whole thing, you have your layer with the lines and just print that one out. You have your stencil done already. So yeah, I couldn't work without digital now. It saves so much space. And honestly, I feel I draw better on digital than paper. So
How we're going to finish it, Andrew? I think that's it. I think we'll probably get some food and have
Sounds
mooch
good.
around and hang out and see what happens.
Sounds like a plan.
Thank you for coming in and chatting to us.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you guys for what you do. I think it's very cool, very important. And when people tell me about RS, it's like it's the guys to go. There's
Yeah, it takes a long time, but hopefully it's worth the wait.
absolutely worth it.
Hopefully, yeah, and we'll talk about our Hall of Fame over there.
Absolutely. Looking forward to be part of that one too.
Yeah, you need to be on there. Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Awesome.